Donc je fais l'intro.
Oui.
Ok.
Peter, do you have a way to know how many students are on the English channel?
Right now, around 72 people.
Maybe tell me later how you got that.
Sorry, I don't understand you.
I mean, do you know how many are on the English channel and how many
Oh.
on the Russian?
Sorry, I
No.
don't know now.
Mm-mm.
Christian, I think you can start.
Ok. Bon, eh bien, bonjour à tous. C'est avec beaucoup de plaisir
Good morning to
que
everyone.
nous venons l'école française
It is
de
with a
décodage
lot of
biologique
pleasure
et
that
l'école
the Biological
russe que nous
Decoding
venons aujourd'hui nous parler,
School
vous parler
and the Russian
cette
school are here
fabuleuse
today
technique.
to talk to you
Nous
about this
allons être
fabulous technique.
ensemble pendant 4 heures.
We're going to be together for the next 4
Nous
hours.
allons accueillir 4 présentateurs, 4
We're welcoming
formateurs.
4
D'abord, un
trainers,
premier, Christian, qui est
4
le
speakers. First,
créateur
Christian
du décodage
Flașche, who is
biologique.
the creator of Biological Decoding.
Puis ensuite va venir Marianne qui vous
Then
parlera
it's
d'un
going to
autre
join us
aspect,
Marianne,
parlera
who's
du
going to
ressenti.
talk about another aspect. She's going to talk about the feelings, the biofeelings, what we will call biofeelings.
Linda,
Then
qui
will
vous
join
parlera
us
des différents,
Linda, who's going
conflits
to talk about the
déclencheurs,
different
conflits,
kinds
traitements.
of conflicts, triggering conflicts, programming conflicts.
Juste pour que vous en
I'll tell you
sachiez
more
un
about
petit
that.
peu plus sur cette
The
merveilleuse
purpose is
technique.
that you know a little bit more about this marvelous technique.
Puis j'aurai le plaisir de terminer cette conférence.
Then I will end the conference with pleasure.
Mais avant de donner la parole
But before
à Christian, je
giving the
voudrais
floor to
remercier
Christian, I would like to thank
de l'Académie Crânio-Sacré
all the team of the Craniosacral Academy
de nous avoir réunis aujourd'hui.
who has joined us together today.
Remercier aussi Elena qui est notre
And to
traductrice
thank also Elena,
du
who
français
is
au russe.
translating today for you in Russian.
Remercier Diana qui est notre traductrice
And
du
to
français
thank
à
Diana, who's translating for you to English.
Donc, vous avez en bas de votre écran un petit
So at the
symbole
bottom of your
avec le
screen,
monde.
you have a
Vous allez
symbol
pouvoir choisir le canal
where you
de
can
votre
choose
langue.
interpretation and choose the channel corresponding to the language you want to listen into. And remember, once you choose your channel, you can mute your original audio so that you do not hear the trainer and hear only the translation if it's better for you.
Bonjour Christian.
Bonjour.
So I leave the floor to Christian. Good morning, Christian. Now, Christian speaking. Good morning to everyone. To tell you the truth, I'm not going to talk about biological decoding, but I am going to talk to you about you. It is your heart. It is your body through which you experience everything, all your secrets, all your suffering, or all your glory and your story. Yes, your body is the guest of honor today until he finds its place in your life. this body that is frequently neglected,
et qui
denied,
exprimait que la douleur, la maladie,
and has only as means to express itself
alors nous avons
pain, illness.
aujourd'hui
And so today, our
avec
meeting
votre curiosité,
is actually with your
votre
curiosity,
disponibilité.
with your presence,
Alors,
your availability. So let's take our time.
prenons du temps pour être
Let's
à ce
take
moment.
time to really be here.
Oui, toi qui me
Yes,
regardes,
you who is looking at me, wherever you are,
es-tu complètement avec toi? Là,
are you completely with yourself here?
pas avec moi.
Not with me, but with yourself.
Alors, avant de commencer,
So before we start this
eh bien,
gathering,
pose-toi. Pose-toi vraiment là, sur la chaise.
sit comfortably on your chair or wherever you are sitting,
Ressentir la relation.
to really feel the relationship that you have with your body.
Car cette conférence n'est pas
Because
pour
this
ton intelligence.
conference is not for your intelligence.
Cette conférence est pour
This
ta biologie
conference is for your biology
qui s'exprime à travers des maladies.
that's expressing itself
Tu peux
through
commencer par entrer en
illnesses.
contact avec ton
If
corps, et
you
tu découvrirais
are in
les
contact
sensations.
now with your body, you're going to discover the
Car
sensations,
le corps, quel
because
langage a-t-il
the body,
pour te parler de lui?
what is the language it has to talk to you about itself? Sensations,
Les émotions
emotions,
et les maladies.
and illnesses.
Alors, bienvenue à ta disponibilité.
So, welcome to your availability today, to the newness today.
Commençons par respirer,
Let's start by breathing,
vraiment. En
really breathing consciously with
vraiment
awareness,
redescendre dans la
to
simplicité.
really be back to this simplicity,
Avec toutes tes connaissances,
because you are here with all that you've learned, with all your knowledge, and at the same time with all your expectations, with all your needs, your desires that led you to subscribe to the conference today. And your expectation is to go to the root of the illnesses, to the roots of it, to understand in order to heal. Because you who's listening to me, who's looking at me, of course, you have the intuition that a disease is talking about something else other than just the disease, that the body is talking about something else. So illness is really pointing to another direction. It is indicating another direction. A little bit like this metaphor of this wise who, with his finger, is going to pinpoint the moon. And he's pinpointing the moon to that man who's looking at the finger. And it's the same thing with illness. The superficial man is looking at the illness, and the informed, sensible man is going to look to which direction is pointing the finger of that illness. In your inner sky, where is it? Where is the meaning of this illness? Where does it make sense and how? And how to know and how to follow, how to look for that direction, how to follow that direction. And from this perspective, Illness is the new paradigm
indiqué par toutes les maladies.
to discover this new direction.
Ok. Et quel est ce nouveau paradigme?
And what is this new paradigm?
Eh bien, l'évolution se fait toujours par évolution de
Well,
paradigme.
Evolution always happens by an evolution through an evolution, a change in paradigm.
Eh bien,
If you take the example of the evolution of electricity, well, it wasn't discovered
les bougies, on a changé de
by enhancing candles, but by changing paradigm.
des chevaux qu'on a inventé
And
la voiture.
it's not by enhancing the nutrition of horses that you invented cars,
Notre
but by
paradigme,
changing
c'est
paradigms.
notre façon de penser.
And this means our way of thinking.
Le paradigme du décodage biologique parle de toi,
And
tout simplement.
the paradigm of biological decoding is that illness talks about you.
Tu ne vérifies pas
And here I ask you not to believe in what I say if you don't already believe that inside of
car
you.
il ne s'agit pas d'apprendre comment fonctionne un moteur
Because here it's not
d'avion
about
ou autre chose
teaching you how
d'extérieur.
an engine works
Mais de
from the
savoir comment
outside,
nous
but
fonctionnons.
to understand how we function.
Alors donc, la vérification, elle est simple, elle est à l'intérieur.
So to verify that, the verification is simply inside of you,
Mais dans ce que tu
not in what you understand, but in what you feel.
car le ressenti, c'est le langage du corps.
Because what you feel is
Alors que le mental
an expression of how your body,
indique notre distance.
what your
avec le
body is
corps.
experiencing.
Nos pensées sont comme un mécanisme
Our thoughts are like a mechanism of defense
qui veut recréer le monde.
that is going to recreate the world.
Et le paradigme est très simple,
And the paradigm that's very simple
efficace,
and at the same time
qui a
powerful and
besoin
efficient,
vérifier à l'intérieur de
and
toi,
that needs to be verified inside your body each time,
eh bien, c'est la thématique de sens biologique.
it is all about the theme of the biological
Quelque chose de
sense, the
tellement
biological
simple
meaning.
qu'un enfant peut
It's something
comprendre
as simple, so simple that even a child understands it.
cela. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire, ce sens biologique?
So, what is this
Eh bien,
biological
plutôt que de
sense or
dire
biological
qu'on est
meaning?
capable de produire de la pensée,
What is it about?
nous allons
Instead
poser
of going to
notre
thoughts,
cerveau, notre réflexion.
we're going to
Car
rest
nous
our
ne sommes
head,
pas
our
des
thoughts,
robots
because we are not
pour le
robots
calcul des probabilités.
calculating
Nous sommes des
probabilities,
êtres, primitifs,
but we
biologiques,
are
archaïques,
biological, primitive, archaic beings
avec cette nécessité eh bien, de satisfaire nos
with
besoins
this
vitaux.
necessity to satisfy our
Alors,
vital
le
needs.
sens biologique, nous allons le trouver à l'intérieur
So the biological sense, we're going to find it inside the body, not in books, not in
L'estomac est
thoughts.
malade, eh bien, l'estomac
The
est
stomach
comme
is
un
ill.
tiroir.
So the stomach is like a drawer,
C'est dans l'estomac
and it's in that drawer
l'origine de cette maladie de l'estomac.
that you find the origin of this illness of the stomach.
C'est dans cet organe malade
If it were the elbow or the leg, then the meaning will be in
Et
that
Dr.
organ
Hammer,
specifically.
il y a bien longtemps, a été le premier
The Dr. Hammer,
ce
a long
thème
time ago, was the very first one to discover the theme of
Il a découvert,
biological
en
sense,
lui-même,
biological meaning. He discovered it
d'abord,
in himself following the death of his own son.
quelques mois plus tard,
A
il
few
se
months
découvre un
after that,
cancer
he
testicular.
discovers that he has cancer in his
Immédiatement,
tests.
Eh bien, en lui s'impose l'évidence qu'il y a un lien entre les deux.
So, with his
D'ailleurs, son fils,
testicular cancer, he realizes
il
that
confirme cela.
there's a link between this event of his son dying and his cancer.
Le sens biologique,
And then his
c'est
son comes in his
la
dreams,
création, la procréation,
and there comes the discovery for him,
germinative.
the relation between the two, because the tests
Et
are
ce docteur
the
Hammer,
organ that is going to be responsible for procreation, and it is his son who died
à la lumière
effectively.
de cette logique,
So in light of this logic that is biological,
donc il ne s'agit pas d'être intelligent.
he continues his discoveries.
Il ne
So it's
s'agit pas
not about being intelligent or psychological.
il ne s'agit pas d'être psychanalytique.
It's not about being psychoanalytical.
Il s'agit d'être biologique.
It's about being biological.
Et se demander, tiens, cet organe,
And to ask oneself, what is this
bien, si
organ?
une solution.
What if this organ is an adaptation solution?
Et si cette solution d'adaptation est dans cet organe, eh bien,
And if the solution of adaptation is in this specific organ, then you're going to check what is this organ's here for, what is its function.
du docteur Hammer,
The first function of
nouveau
Dr.
paradigme
Hammer,
du décodage biologique,
the new paradigm of biological
la pratique
decoding,
de la thérapie,
and the practice of therapy,
de changer vos vies, de changer votre destin, de changer votre santé, de changer votre
So,
relation à l'extérieur.
this illness is going to ask you to change your relationship to yourself and your relationship to the outside world, because that's what illness is all about. The message of
Je
illness,
dirais presque la tendresse de la maladie,
I would almost say the tenderness of illness, is to attract our attention, just like this finger pinpointing to the moon. Illness is this finger
et qui utilise les codes biologiques.
that is using biological codes,
Testicules, perte d'enfant,
problems in the
vessie,
tests, relation is in relation with kids,
la cystite,
the bladder,
cancer à la vessie.
what is it going to pinpoint
Observe chez
at?
les animaux l'importance de marquer les limites du territoire.
For example, when we have cystitis, and we notice for animals that they use their bladder, their urine, to mark their territories. So I'll give you the example of this woman who has cystitis. And when I tell her this metaphor about the animal that marks his territory with his urine,
Bien, la thérapie est brève.
and using this brief
Oui,
therapy,
c'est vrai. Mon voisin a
she
plusieurs
says, ah,
fois
yeah,
la
that's right.
nuit, il rentre dans
My
la maison
neighbor
frappé.
keeps coming to my house without knocking even. He just comes in.
Ah oui, il me
He's
raconte
crossing the
une
limits.
autre personne avec une cystite également.
And another person, another story with also
La nuit, il met,
cystitis,
la musique très
told
forte.
me, yeah, it's my neighbor who's always putting the music very loud. I have the impression that he's dancing in my own living room. He's crossing the limits.
Oui, me dit telle autre personne. Je suis sous la douche et ma mère rentre dans la salle de bain.
Another person with cystitis tells me, yeah, it's my mother-in-law. I'm here in the shower and she just comes in. She barges in. She's crossing the limits.
Universel.
So the biologic is universal.
Libanais,
Whether you're Russian, Lebanese,
mexicain,
Mexican, wherever you are,
soyez une lionne, une panthère,
whether you're a lion, a dog,
la vessie
there is
sert
a
à marquer
universal
les limites du
meaning used by the bladder, which is to mark the territory.
territoire. Et la vie,
The
l'oxygène.
alveoli in the lungs, they have a function to capture oxygen.
Quelqu'un qui fait plus de poumons, on se
So someone who's developing more lungs,
des poumons.
we're going to ask the question,
Quel est leur sens
what
biologique?
are lungs used for? What is their biological meaning, role? And what is the need that is not satisfied?
Sens biologique, donc attraper la vie. Et si je ne peux pas, eh bien j'ai peur de mourir, je me sens étouffé, asphyxié. Comme cet homme qui a un cancer des poumons, lorsqu'il s'est senti enfermé dans l'ascenseur.
So, for the example of this man who
les surprend et veut le tuer avec sa carabine.
has lung cancer, he had an event where he was surprised by his mistress who wanted to kill him. And then an example of another man who had lung cancer, and he had an event, a conflictual event while he was diving, and he lacked oxygen. So there is a conflictual emotion related to it. And this emotion was experienced, was felt during a Bioshock. As simple as that. Someone comes for a problem in the thyroid. So what is the biological sense? To accelerate the rhythm of the body. What is the feeling? And this function is not satisfied. Well, it's about urgency. You need to hurry. And when did it happen in your life? I ask a patient who has hyperthyroidism. The question is simple, precise. Hyperthyroidism is about urgency. I need to hurry. So in just a few minutes, the person says, ah, yes, I just remembered that when I was a child, my mother would wake me up to catch the bus for school, and I had to hurry so I'm not late. This person is healed from her thyroid problem. The person heals from his cystitis. Sometimes in one session or two sessions. Or this woman who has metastasis in the bones. So here are the imageries. It's in the bones and you can't operate on her. And the body, you see, is programmed towards health. Your body is programmed towards healing. You are not programmed to be ill, but to live. So if you break your bone is going to make more bones. If you burn your skin is going to produce more skin. Through a phenomenon of recalcification. So the body is able to make again more bones, more skeletons. And this woman worked in biological decoding, and she revisited all the devaluations related to events in her life, in her childhood, and she accessed them. She accepted to meet herself in her suffering, in her wounds, in all her bioshocks. A bioshock is a moment that you live, an unbearable moment, an unacceptable moment, a moment for which you are totally feeling powerless. And we've all experienced bioshocks. We always experience bioshocks, emotional moments. And because we don't have solutions for them, the ultimate solution is repression. We repress them. Repression is just like Freud introduced the term. His real name is not Sigmund Freud, but Sigismund Freud. And in German, Mund means the mouth. Sigis means to win, to conquer. With his name, he is already in his biology. He wanted to,
a eu un cancer de la bouche.
he had
Tout est biologique.
he had a problem in his mouth,
Son
in
métier,
his
c'est découvrir son
biology,
prénom, sa maladie,
and his
la direction vers la même chose.
what he did for a living is to conquer the word, is to talk.
Qui pointe vers son secret, vers son histoire.
You will notice that even our profession is going to pinpoint to our conflictual stories,
Émotionnel,
our intimate
avec sa mère,
conflictual
plus
stories.
important que son père. Et nous voilà déjà dans son histoire édipienne. Quels sont les secrets?
And so,
Bien
what
le
is in her,
qui est un accélérateur,
what is in his stories that was conflictual? That's important to visit.
accélérateur de prise de conscience.
Because illness is an accelerator of this
Se font dans le corps,
awareness
dans
process.
l'esprit.
This awareness that starts in the body and not up in the spirit,
Ce n'est pas mental,
in the mind. It's not mental,
ce n'est pas
it's not cerebral, rational. It's not.
Ainsi, nous avons
Like this woman who had
Bio-Schock.
bone cancer with metastasis
Un Bio-Schock, c'est
in the
lorsque
bones.
mon besoin
And
biologique,
look at her scans right
puis
now.
émotionnel, puis psychologique,
So we have
mon besoin
conflicts
biologique
because
ne peut pas être satisfait.
I have biological needs that were not satisfied.
Cette femme qui est stérile,
Just like the story of this
elle
woman
rencontre une femme qui veut avorter d'un bébé, elle est
who
terrifiée
couldn't have
par cet
kids,
enfant qui va mourir
who was
à
sterile,
cause de cet avortement.
and she meets another
Donc,
woman
cette femme
who
n'avance
wanted
pas,
to
donne-moi cet enfant. Et l'autre accepte,
have an abortion.
aidez-moi.
So this other woman accepts. Instead of having an abortion, she gives her baby to the woman who can't have babies,
À la femme stérile.
and she gives her baby to the
Et
sterile
Bio-Schock, cette peur
woman.
pour cet enfant. Et la femme
And
stérile, eh bien, elle accueille cet enfant avec beaucoup d'émotions.
this sterile woman was very emotional. She was so scared for this baby because he was about to be aborted,
Il y a un amour
to be killed.
biologique, cellulaire,
It's a biological love, cellular love.
fabrique du lait.
And as soon as she takes
Elle ne va
in
porter cet
the
enfant,
baby
non,
in her arms,
elle va
her
allaiter ce
breasts are going to make milk for that baby. She's going to breastfeed him. She's going to
enfant. Et on
nourish
comprend
that
très
baby.
bien que
And we understand
cette
very
prise
well
de lait n'est pas
that
un problème,
this production of
c'est une
milk
solution.
is not a problem, but a
La biologie ne
solution.
réfléchit qu'en termes de solution.
Our biology only thinks in terms of solutions.
Un problème,
So what you call a problem is actually
solution d'un moment
a solution that is lasting long.
d'un drame caché, dissimulé.
It's a trauma that is dissimulated, that is hidden,
Les émotions, de changer quelque chose.
because I didn't
C'est une
have
solution, eh bien, c'est le
a
refoulement.
solution to
Sigismund,
that emotion, that conflict.
qui veut
Just
vaincre.
like Sigismund said,
Oui,
he wanted to conquer the mouth,
quoi qu'il t'arrive,
and he was ill
quelle que soit
in the
ta
mouth
plainte,
with necrosis.
le
Whatever
problème d'un niveau est
the complaint,
d'un autre niveau. Alors il s'agit
the
d'aller
problem is a solution, but at a different level.
transformation.
So we're here all about discovering what is it a solution
On
for.
utilise simplement les codes biologiques.
We are simply using biological
Car le
codes
corps, c'est la somme de tous
because
tes
the body
apprentissages,
is the sum of all your learnings.
par la génétique à tes enfants.
There are going to be transfers genetically
C'est ton
to your
histoire,
kids,
c'est ton vécu.
to your descendants. Your body is your experiences, it's your memory. And illness is one moment in your history,
C'est la nostalgie
a very specific moment.
incarcérée dans la matière de ton corps. La maladie, c'est l'histoire.
The illness
La matière.
is the story, your story, that is going to meet with
Le
matter.
codage biologique va
And
utiliser
biological decoding is going to use these codes, these needs,
que nous avons.
these biological needs that you have.
Boire, attraper de l'eau, de la caresse, de la tendresse,
to see, to touch, etc. Then a Bio-Schock arrives. It's like a thunderclap in the middle of a clear sky. And then we are going to discover this moment. Maybe I heard something that I couldn't bear and I became deaf. So the body is going to discover this dissimulated, this hidden code, and this code is the key. You forgot this accident, this fear that you had, the death that you saw. It was so much that it went inside of you somewhere. And guess what? Animals also, they do have difficult experiences too. And us also, during our childhoods, we were overwhelmed with these kinds of experiences, maybe. So in therapy, we're going to discover the manual. Just like when you buy a computer, they give you the manual with it. And as such, you can learn how to use it, to use your computer. You buy a car, you have a manual with that car. You buy a phone, they give you a manual for this phone, for everything that you buy. But guess what? At birth, when you're born, they give you a body without the manual of how to use the body. You don't know how it functions. No instruction manual. You know that you need to give it nourishment, food, water. You listen to your sensations. For example, I feel so small. I feel sad. Your sensations, your emotions are going to pinpoint your attention towards your needs. And what do you do when you have these needs and you need to satisfy them? What do you do when you're having these emotions, when you're having these sensations? I'm too small. I feel anguish and sad. I feel terrified because there are kids on the street that are going to hurt me. I feel humiliated. I feel too small. And what do I do with this sensation? What do I do with this need? Well, most of the time, I do not hear that. I neglect that. I don't hear it. I don't hear myself. I do not put myself first in my life. I put first in my life, not me, but a creation of me, and social personality, egocentric maybe. I put in my center someone who's not me. While all deep inside of me, there is this child who's feeling powerless. And he's going to work after 20, 30 years. His low self-esteem, his lack in confidence, his feeling that nobody ever opens the door for him, nobody ever listens to him. He has these sensations in his body. Because the past, it's like a passenger. It invites itself permanently to our house, to our home.
Alors, la thérapie en décodage,
Why therapy in biodecoding with the codes, we find again this instant,
écoute cet instant.
and
Le secret de
then
cet instant.
we listen to this
Donne la
instant,
place.
to the secrets of this instant. We
C'est-à-dire,
give it space, we hold
vide
space for it.
toutes tes émotions.
This means we liberate all emotions, like another trainer is going
Cet
to
instant, eh bien, un autre formateur
tell you
aussi
about later.
parler de ces techniques, de l'importance de retourner à cet instant.
And that trainer is going to tell you more about the techniques and the importance of going back to that instant.
Va permettre
And then the therapy,
d'écouter ce
when taking us back to this moment, is going to listen to our needs,
et qui continue
the
d'être
past needs that were in the past but are continuing to be present in the present.
changer notre perception également.
Therapy is going to allow us to change our perception equally.
Et c'est cela le mode d'emploi.
And that's
Le secret,
the hidden, secret, occult
le mode
instruction
d'emploi
manual,
de ton corps.
the instruction manual of your body.
Premièrement, écoute-le.
First, listen to it. Listen to your body.
Écoute-le tout le temps.
Listen to your body all
Il
the
s'exprime
time
tout le temps.
because he's expressing himself all the time.
On écoute beaucoup plus notre mental,
We listen more, much more to our thoughts, our mental, our television, the internet,
que soi-même.
much more than we listen to ourselves. And then the man becomes a stranger to the man, to himself, and illness is going to come here at this moment to bring him back to himself. Because you know your stomach is hurting, you know that you have a left knee when you're suffering from it, when it's painful. You know you have bronchi when you're coughing. You realize that you have a couple, you're in a couple's relationship when the other one leaves. You know that you have kids when they become problematic, and that becomes problematic. So change your destiny just by being simply by simply listening to yourself, not in a narcissistic way, because the narcissist does not hear himself. He listens to a personality that he creates. Listen to the emotions in your body to become more intimate with yourself. Once that you've heard your sensations, your emotions, and your needs, you've done a giant step to start listening to yourself for good. Your life is going to start changing, and you're going to be ready for the next step, which is going to be to express your emotions and not to watch an artist do it in your place, not the emotions of your secondary character, personage, figure that you created. You become closer to yourself. To listen to your needs means to start respecting yourself. And to respect yourself is going to allow you to love yourself. Expressing your needs doesn't matter whether or not they are satisfied, because one of our important needs is to listen to ourselves. And when you're conscious of your emotions, your sensations, and that you express them, you enter intimately in your intimacy. a certain vulnerability to yourself. And that is going to open up towards a real power, not an external power or not an artificial power, but the power of life inside of you. And as such, your relationship to your body is going to allow you to change your relationship to the outside world. Your relationship to yourself that has become sacred, more humane, honest. It's going to change your relationship with the others, your relationship to life, because it is the same life that is inside you, that is the same life outside of you. This life that's taken the appearance, the form, the shape of your history, of your story. Once you're in peace with it inside of you, you are at peace with life outside of you, with other people's behaviors, for example. And it's like that your body becomes serene. It is peaceful because the body is programmed towards health. The body is programmed toward healing, just like your life is programmed toward joy. And then you're going to become the friend of yourself, your more dense self, for a marriage, your marriage with yourself. There is no longer a divorce between you and yourself, but reconciliation, recognition, unity. And it's all that, the trip, the journey that allows you each and every illness, each and every apparent problems, each and every difficulty, everything that you reject. Because the problem is not, because it is not the problems that you are rejecting. It's the opposite. It's what you reject that becomes a problem. So this inner journey starts now, inside of you. There is no other place for you but inside of you. And illness is a megaphone to attract even more your attention. And I suggest to you who's listening to me to listen right now, just right now. I invite you to choose an illness that you have right now, a disease that you have right now, a symptom, a tension maybe, or a pain, something that's in your body and it's not working, and it's bothering you, maybe a problem in your vision, in your skin, your weight. And I invite you to close your eyes, to the outside world in order to open your eyes towards the inside, your inside world. right now.
Respire par la bouche ouverte.
Breathe with your open mouth
Et commence à créer du lien vers cette
and
partie de ton corps
start
malade,
creating a link to
cette partie de ton corps
this part of
qui
you
est
that is
avec
ill,
un message du passé,
this part of you that simply has a message from the past
c'est
for
une
you.
lettre fermée.
It's a closed letter.
Et en contact avec
And
cet organe malade,
all the while you're in contact with this sick organ,
encore plus intimement.
enter more this relationship more intimately in order to welcome
Quelque chose
something, to receive
dont tu n'as pas idée.
something. And you have no idea what that it will be.
Sois disponible,
Just be present, available for what's going to happen inside of you right now.
en contact avec ta maladie, eh bien, prépare-toi à
All the
accepter
while you're in contact with your illness, prepare to accept the relationship, your relationship with this illness in a new way.
deviens cette partie de ton corps malade.
Become this part of your body, become this part of your ill body.
Deviens ton
Dive
estomac, tes
inside,
foies, tes yeux.
become your stomach, become your liver, become your eyes,
Viens et découvre les sensations.
become and discover the sensations in this
Quelles qu'elles
disease, whatever they are,
soient. Maintenant,
right now.
deviens l'émotion secrète,
Become the secret emotion, the hidden emotion,
l'émotion inavouable,
the unspeakable emotion.
et si tout cela était une couleur,
If all that were a
quelle serait
color,
cette couleur?
which color would that be?
Cette émotion dans
This
ton corps
emotion
malade,
inside your sick organ,
cette histoire
this
passée.
sensation, this past story.
Car ton organe malade ressemble à une salle de
Because
cinéma
your sick organ
cachée d'ici,
resembles a
dans laquelle
movie
tu
theater that is hidden, in which you're diving in right now.
Et dans cette couleur de cette émotion, de cette histoire,
And in this color of this emotion, of this story,
eh bien, tu découvres quel était ton besoin.
you discover what was your
Ton
need,
besoin négligé, ton besoin
your unsatisfied need, your neglected need. What
tu as
was it?
souffert ce jour-là, car
You
tu avais
suffered
besoin de
that
toi,
day because you
au
needed
fond de
what?
ta cellule.
Deep inside your cells,
Écoute
deep inside
ton besoin,
your every cell.
besoin nié,
Listen to this
négligé,
need,
mis de côté.
to this neglected need, to this need that was put aside,
Besoin d'amour, de tendresse,
a need for love,
besoin de sécurité,
for
présence,
tenderness, for
besoin
security,
d'espace,
for presence,
liberté,
for space, for
besoin de
freedom,
respect,
a need for respect,
besoin de quoi?
a need for what?
Et si ce besoin si important, si
And if
précieux,
that need
profond,
that is so important, so precious, so deep
était une couleur, eh bien,
were a color,
ça serait quelle couleur?
what color would that be?
Ce besoin que tu as oublié?
This need that you've forgotten,
Ce très beau besoin.
this very beautiful
Besoin de la
need,
petite fille ou du petit garçon en toi,
the need of this little girl or this little boy in you,
ou
the
de
need
l'adolescent,
of the embryon inside of you,
ce besoin de cet ancêtre auquel tu es relié,
the need need of this ancestor to whom you're connected, maybe.
Ce besoin, oui, s'il était d'une couleur,
That need had a color. What is the color that is appearing?
tu vas pouvoir te baigner de cette couleur.
You're going to be able to nourish yourself with this color,
À la
to
fois
swim in this color.
sur ta peau, dans tes
At the
poumons,
same time, on your skin, in your lungs,
bien cette couleur
in your eyes.
du besoin satisfait.
This color of the satisfied need now is going to meet the other color, the color of the emotion of the sick organ. So you bring in the color of
Ces deux
the
émotions,
satisfied need
deux couleurs se
to meet the color of the emotion, and you let them meet. You let it happen
simplement,
simply,
tranquillement. Cette couleur du besoin satisfait arrive
when this color of the satisfied need arrives in the heart of your sick organ, and it opens the door.
en toute sécurité,
It opens the door safely,
confiance.
with all confidence,
Car tu le sais, eh bien,
because
ton
you know
corps,
it.
à chaque instant,
You know it already.
te
You
dit
know
que
already that your body, at every
ton
instant,
corps n'a jamais été
wants
ton ennemi.
what's good for you.
Bien
Your
au
body has
contraire.
never been your enemy,
Mais tu
right?
sais,
The opposite.
es-tu vraiment l'ami de ton corps à chaque instant,
And you are,
de tes émotions, de tes besoins?
and are you the friend of your body at every instant,
Décides-tu pour toi?
the friend of your emotions, your needs? So decide for yourself.
Veux-tu respirer
Do you want to breathe totally, completely?
Veux-tu
Fully?
respirer dans chacune de tes cellules?
Do you want to
Dans
breathe
tes poumons?
in every single one of your cells, not only in your lungs?
Laisser entrer la vie dans toutes les parties de ton corps?
Would you allow life to
La vie,
enter
c'est
to
très
all the
bien, ce
parts
que
of your body? Because life knows exactly what it's doing.
la vie ne commet aucune erreur.
Life does not commit any errors.
Ainsi, tu le comprends maintenant.
And now you understand that.
La maladie n'est pas une erreur.
Illness, disease,
Ce qui
is
t'est
not a
arrivé
mistake,
n'est pas
it's
une
not an error. What happened to you is not by error, not by mistake.
Tu n'es pas une erreur.
And you are not a mistake.
Je te remercie
And I thank you
de la part de ton corps
on behalf of your body to have
de
accepted
ce partage.
this sharing that you
Merci
just
de la
did.
part de tes émotions
I thank you on behalf of your emotions
d'avoir accepté
to have
ce
accepted
moment avec toi.
this moment with yourself.
Je te remercie de la part de ton histoire
I thank you on behalf of your story to have accepted
de devenir toi-même.
to become yourself.
Et en conclusion,
And in
il me
conclusion,
reste à te dire
I'm only left to say
la vie n'est pas
the following. Life is not where you think,
elle est
it is
là où
where
tu aimes.
you love.
À très bientôt.
See you
Au
soon.
revoir.
Goodbye.
va nous présenter un thème différent, comme je vous l'ai dit en début de cette conférence.
So now I'm introducing our next speaker, Marianne, who is going to talk about the different biofeelings.
Merci Sophie, et merci à tous. Bienvenue à chacun et à chacune d'entre vous.
Marianne is taking the floor now and saying welcome to each and every one of you. And Sophie saying Marianne is handles and organizes the trainings in the United States of America and the English-speaking schools. As you know, that our school is international, and we have the chance to be able to teach this therapy in different countries.
Dans toute l'Amérique du Sud,
In all South America,
au Liban,
in Lebanon,
en Russie,
in Russia,
en Italie.
in Italy,
Et nous espérons continuer à faire connaître cette
and
merveilleuse
in addition to the countries you already know, and we continue to expand the classes and the courses worldwide. And I leave the floor to Marianne, who's going to talk about the different biofeelings. So Marianne saying, I welcome each and every one of you. Thank you, Sophie. And especially welcome to your curiosity and to your emotions. My name is Marianne Boularand. I'm also naturopath and also a trainer at the School of Christian Flașche. And it's always an honor to be with you here today, to meet you where you are, and to talk to you about this marvelous technique that I myself have used. And you can see that I use the word marvelous because biodecoding of Christian Flașche is really a marvelous method. What I have principally discovered through the biodecoding of Christian Flașche, and I insist, the biodecoding of Christian Flașche, it's the world of emotions and how they influence our cells in their deep, profound functioning. So it's the subject that I'm going to develop on today, our emotions, our feelings. So emotions, feelings are really the foundation of biodecoding. This is where we start in therapy. I would say that emotions are the express road to access the cellular memory and to accelerate the healing process of the body, of the psyche, and of the mental mind. What is an emotion? When you say emotion, what are we talking about? Emotions are really fashionable today, trendy. So we're going to take a minute to clarify a little bit. I think that Christians already introduced a little bit about emotions. So I'm going to repeat it. Emotions are really the engine of life. It's what puts us into movement inside of us and outside of us. We react because or thanks to our emotions. It is our emotions that push us to act or to react.
tout ce qu'on expérience dans la vie
Everything that we
est émotionnel,
experiment in
sensoriel.
life is emotional,
C'est
is
vraiment la
sensory.
fondation de notre réalité
It's
physique
really the
spirituelle.
foundation of our physical reality, of our
Nous
planet.
expérimentons
We
les choses au niveau
experiment
physique, à
things
travers nos organes de
physically
sens.
through our
Et cela génère
5
des
senses,
émotions.
and this generates emotions.
Si je mange une fraise, par exemple,
If I eat a strawberry,
mes
for
sens
example,
sont stimulés.
my sensory organs are
Mes
stimulated.
yeux, mon
My
odorat, ma
eyes, the
gustative,
smell, my gustatory
le toucher,
senses,
et ça crée
touch,
un
and
état
it
émotionnel.
creates an emotional
Ici, ça peut être du
state.
plaisir,
Here it can be a pleasure,
de la joie, du bien-être,
joy,
etc.
well-being, etc.
Donc,
So
la vie est
life
amenée à notre conscience à travers nos
comes
organes
to
des
our
sens,
consciousness through our sensory
à travers nos
organs
émotions.
and through our
Les
emotions.
sensations physiques et les
The
émotions
physical sensations and
marchent
emotions,
vraiment main dans la main.
they come together, really together,
Ils sont
hand
indissociables.
in hand. We can't dissociate
Vous
them
savez déjà,
from one another.
quand vous apprenez une mauvaise nouvelle, par
You
exemple,
already know, as
ça
when
crée une
you
émotion.
hear bad news,
Vous pouvez vous sentir
that creates an
en
emotion.
colère,
You can feel
triste,
angry,
vous
sad,
pouvez avoir peur.
you can be
etc.
scared, afraid, etc.
Et en même temps, il
And
y a
at the
quelque
same
chose qui se
time,
passe dans votre corps.
something happens
Ça peut
inside
être
your body.
un resserrement d'estomac,
It can be your
un
stomach
mal de tête,
feeling
ou même des muscles, des
tension,
zones faibles.
maybe a headache, maybe your muscles
Donc,
feeling
on voit à
weaker.
travers aussi toutes les techniques de marketing, les
So
médias et même les
we
politiques.
noticed that all the marketing
Ils ont très bien compris
techniques,
comment
also
les
in
émotions nous
politics,
font agir.
they very well understood how emotions make us act or react.
Quand vous regardez, par exemple, à la télévision, un
When you're
enfant dans une
watching
chaise
on TV
roulante
a child in a wheelchair
et qu'on vous demande de financer la
and you're being
recherche,
asked to finance the research,
qu'est-ce qui vous
the
donne envie de
related
donner
research,
l'argent?
what makes you
C'est
want to
une
give
émotion.
money? It's
C'est
an
un ressenti
emotion.
intérieur.
It's an inner feeling.
De même, la publicité.
In the same way
Qu'est-ce qui
for
vous fait acheter?
publicity, what makes you buy
C'est une
something?
émotion.
It is an emotion.
Les images, les mots qu'ils utilisent
Images,
créent quelque chose à
the
l'intérieur
images
de
that
vous.
they use, the words that they use, that creates, all that
émotion,
creates something
eh
inside
bien,
of you, an
parce que
emotion. And this
il y a un besoin
emotion is
insatisfait.
here because there's an unsatisfied
Le
need.
produit qui vous est vendu a une
And the
promesse de
outcome
satisfaire ce besoin.
is that the product
C'est ce qui vous fait acheter.
will satisfy your needs. And this is why you buy it.
Donc, vous avez peut-être vu auparavant avec Christian,
You probably have seen with Christian a bit earlier,
votre besoin est satisfait,
when
ben,
your
vous
need
avez
is satisfied,
un sentiment,
then
une sensation de bien-être.
you have a
Et
feeling
donc,
of
en
well-being,
général,
a sensation of
vous ne faites
well-being.
pas attention à la pub.
So in general, you wouldn't pay attention to this publicity.
Donc,
You'll
l'émotion,
skip it.
c'est vraiment ce qui permet
So
d'être conscient
the
de ce qui se
emotion
passe
is
à
what allows
l'intérieur
us
de
to
nous.
be aware of what is happening inside of us.
C'est la voix du corps
It is
qui remonte dans le conscient.
the body's
C'est comme un grand
voice
mégaphone. Vous savez, un
coming to our
amplificateur.
consciousness. It's
C'est
like a
notre
big
voix
speaker
cellulaire.
transmitting the voice of our
Les
cells.
émotions sont là
So
pour
emotions
m'indiquer
are
si mes
here
besoins sont satisfaits ou
to
non.
indicate for me whether or not my needs are satisfied.
Donc, si mon besoin n'est pas satisfait,
So if my need
alors
is not
vient la
satisfied,
sensation physique et
hence
l'émotion qui
comes
vient
the
avec
physical sensation
pour me signaler
and the
quelque
emotion
chose
that
qui
comes
se
with
passe
it
à l'intérieur de moi
to
pour me
signal
faire
back
agir,
to me that something is happening inside of me,
pour satisfaire ce besoin.
and so that I get to do something about it.
Donc,
to satisfy my needs.
l'émotion, pour résumer, c'est un signal.
So, to conclude,
C'est un
an
outil
emotion
de
is a
mesure
signal,
de notre degré de
is a
satisfaction.
measurement tool of our degree of satisfaction.
Et en biodécodage, c'est
And
notre
in
outil
biodecoding,
principal.
it's our principal tool.
C'est ce qui va nous permettre d'accéder
It
à
is
notre
what will
réalité
allow us
biologique,
to access
à
our
notre carte
biological
intérieure.
reality, our inner map.
L'émotion, c'est l'accès direct aux cellules.
Emotion is the direct access to cells, direct access to our emotions,
Mais toutes les
But-
émotions ne se valent pas.
not all emotions
Et c'est ce que je vais vous expliquer.
are going, not all emotions are going to have the same implication.
De
There are
ressenti.
different types of emotions, of feelings.
Vous l'avez peut-être remarqué dans votre vie,
You probably
ou même
noticed
dans votre
that in your
pratique en tant
lives
que thérapeute,
or in your practice as therapists, maybe,
que certaines personnes
that
vis-à-vis
certain
d'un
persons
événement particulier de leur vie
facing a particular event in their life
expriment leurs émotions
are
de
going to
nombreuses fois
express their emotions many
avec
times
différentes personnes,
with different people,
des thérapeutes,
therapists,
des amis
friends,
ou même leurs chiens.
even their dogs.
Et parfois, ils l'expriment pendant des années.
And sometimes they express it throughout years and years.
Ils expriment leur colère,
And for years, they would
vis-à-vis de leur
express
père
their
qui n'a pas été
anger
présent.
towards
Ils
their
expriment
father
leur
who was
tristesse d'avoir
absent,
perdu leur
her
mère,
sadness to have
leur
lost
grand-mère.
their mother or their grandmother.
Mais ils l'expriment, mais rien ne semble changer
They
ni dans
express,
leur corps, ni dans
but
leur vie.
nothing seems to have changed, neither in their
Ils manifestent
body, neither in
toujours
their
le
life.
symptôme.
The body continues to manifest the symptom.
Leurs réactions, leur comportement restent
Their
le même.
reactions, their behavior stays the same.
Qu'importe combien de fois ils ont exprimé leur douleur,
It doesn't matter how many times they
leur
express
frustration,
their
leur tristesse, rien ne change.
pain, their frustration, their sadness. Nothing
Donc, se
changes
peut-il
over the
que
years.
l'émotion exprimée ne soit pas la bonne, entre guillemets?
So it's possible it's not the right emotion that is
Je vais
being
vous donner
expressed.
l'exemple d'un homme qui vient en séance pour la première fois.
I will give you the
en séance de
example of
biodécodage.
this man who comes in for a
Cet
biodecoding
homme,
session
il
for the
a,
first
à peu
time.
près 60 ans, et donc,
So he's
il a été
60
abusé
years old and he
sexuellement
was sexually
par
abused
un des membres de sa famille.
by one of his family members.
Et donc, ça fait pas mal d'années qu'il est
And
en
it's
thérapie.
been many years he's in therapy.
Il a essayé différentes thérapies.
He
et
tried
évidemment, ça
different
lui a
kinds of
beaucoup
therapies,
aidé.
and evidently it did help him a
mieux.
lot. He feels better,
Mais il me dit,
but he tells
il
me
sent qu'il y a quelque chose de plus profond
he feels that there's something
qu'il n'arrive
deeper
pas à accéder.
that he can't
Donc,
access.
il vient me voir et son but est vraiment de
He comes to see me, and
libérer
his objective is to
de cette
continue
douleur,
to liberate himself
de cette
from this pain,
colère.
from this anger,
Cette colère qui est présente
this anger that
constamment,
is constantly present in his life
quotidiennement.
on a daily
Qui a
basis,
beaucoup
every day,
dégradé sa relation avec sa
that
femme et
is
ses enfants.
has downgraded his relationship to
Donc,
his
vous
wife and
imaginez,
kids.
depuis l'âge de 5-6 ans,
So you can imagine, since the
il a
age of
exprimé sa
5,
colère
6 years,
des milliers de
he
fois.
expressed his anger a million times.
Mais comment se fait-il qu'aujourd'hui,
But how
cette
come
colère a
today
toujours
this
une très
anger
grande intensité?
still has an intensity?
Donc, une des réponses,
One of the answers,
c'est
one of
qu'il y
the
a un
answers is
autre
that
ressenti
there's
qui n'a pas
another
été
feeling
exprimé,
that was not expressed,
qui est resté caché
another feeling
toutes
that
ces années.
stayed hidden all these years.
Et donc, pour cette première séance,
And so for this first session,
je fais un protocole vraiment de base du biodécodage.
with this man, I suggest to him
Protocole, on
a
l'appelle
basic
Bio-Schock.
a basic technique that we call the bio-target in our course. So this man, through the bio-target, he's going to express feeling soiled, broken into pieces, betrayed. And it's at that moment that there is a very strong emotion expressed. And for the first time, he cries and his voice changes. I see in his behavior and his posture, I see the little boy, the 6-year-old boy. And once he expressed his feelings, he says, it's so unbearable to feel this, to feel all this anger. So this anger that he's been expressing was not the real emotion that was inside of him, the unbearable one. But he used it so that to camouflage, to hide what he was really feeling, and that was unbearable to feel. So he felt like nothing. He felt soiled, dirtied, and it was unbearable for him. And because he was using the energy of anger, he was able to have people, he used this anger energy to be able to express his real emotions. And he said that all these years it was important to have this energy of anger to survive. But once he finished the bio-target, he expressed his deep inner feelings. Something happened in his body. Peace, a sensation that he's never felt before. It was new to him, and it was pleasant.
Car en effet, exprimer la vraie émotion est une libération. Et parfois, c'est suffisant juste de faire ça.
He was able to liberate all this memory just by doing that.
Et que seulement certaines d'entre elles.
So now you're starting to understand that there are different kinds of emotions that have different impacts on our cells, creating physical illness or creating dis-ease, not in the body, but maybe psychically. A discomfort and unease. Because you realize now that what creates the illness and the and the uneasiness on the psychological level is really these shocks that happen emotionally. And it is specifically these emotions that are unexpressed. And once they are not expressed, they become blocked in the cells in our body. They stay stuck in time. These cells that are stuck in time do not evolve anymore. So illness is really the reflection of the past and not of the present. Later on, my colleague Linda is going to explain all these details for you. So during the session in biodecoding, the first job of the therapist is to identify this emotion that we call the primary feeling. I feel soiled, I feel broken into pieces. This is primary. As I said, when this man expresses exactly those, he feels peaceful inside and the anger disappears.
La particularité de
The
ce ressenti
particularity
primaire
of
est
this
qu'il est toujours
primary
associé
feeling
à une sensation physique.
is that it is always associated with a physical
C'est ce qui
sensation
touche la cellule,
which
c'est ce qui fait
affects the
réagir la
cell,
cellule.
which by which the cell reacts.
Le ressenti primaire, c'est vraiment le ressenti que
The
l'on
primary
ressent
feeling
au
is
moment
really the one that we feel at the moment of the shock,
du premier choc.
of the first shock.
Comme cet enfant quand il était, comme
Like
cet homme
this
quand il était enfant,
child, or like this man when he was a child,
mais il n'a pas
with
pu
what he
l'exprimer
felt,
pour
and he
différentes
wasn't
raisons.
able to express it for different reasons.
Et donc, cet ressenti primaire, par contraste avec la colère,
So this primary
elle ne
feeling,
dure pas
to
dans le temps.
compare it with the anger he was feeling,
Elle
this primary
disparaît
feeling
très
does not
rapidement dès
last
qu'elle
in
est
time.
exprimée.
It disappears right after its
Et elle
expression.
crée une libération
Unlike the
tout au
anger
long de la
he
vie,
was carrying his whole life, even if he
qui
expressed
permet
it,
à la
he was
personne
still there.
de se
It was still
reconnecter
there.
à elle-même.
So this primary feeling allows the person, once this is liberated, it allows the person to connect to oneself.
Et donc, la colère,
And
en
so
fait,
the
ici,
anger,
c'est ce qu'on appelle
effectively,
un ressenti
here is
secondaire.
what we call a secondary feeling.
Et donc, le ressenti secondaire, comme je l'ai exprimé
So the
auparavant,
secondary feeling, as
c'est
I
que
explained
même
previously,
si on l'exprime, elle ne crée
even
pas
if
de
we
changement
express it,
intérieur,
it doesn't create any inner changes,
ni physiquement,
neither physically,
ni émotionnellement,
neither emotionally,
ni mentalement.
neither mentally.
Il n'y a pas de libération.
There's no
Ce
liberation.
ressenti secondaire, il se perpétue pendant
This
des années.
secondary feeling becomes perpetual through the years.
Et le ressenti secondaire a cette
And the
particularité,
secondary
c'est
feeling
de
has this
masquer
particularity,
le
which
ressenti
is
primaire.
to mask the primary feeling,
Il est
to
comme un
mask it,
bouclier
to hide it.
pour empêcher la
It's kind of
personne de
like
ressentir
a
quelque chose
protection
qui est
shield, a
encore plus
protective
insupportable.
shield. It protects the person from feeling
Quelque
what's
chose qui n'est
underneath
pas
that is unbearable to
socialement,
feel,
culturellement acceptable.
or maybe to shield from another feeling that is socially
Le
unacceptable.
ressenti secondaire, en fait, déconnecte la personne
So the
de sa
secondary
vraie
feeling
souffrance
really disconnects the person from its
et
real suffering,
déconnecte la personne d'elle-même, en fait,
disconnects the person from
de
oneself,
ses besoins profonds.
from their own deep
Elle
needs.
nous maintient à l'extérieur
And it
de
keeps
nous-mêmes.
us at outside of ourselves.
Donc, trouver le ressenti primaire
So
permet
to
vraiment cette
find the
reconnexion avec
primary
nous-mêmes
feeling allows this reconnection with
et avec nos besoins
ourselves
profonds.
and with our inner needs,
C'est un
deep
retour
inner
à
needs.
la maison.
It's going back home.
Donc, peut-être vous commencez à percevoir ou à comprendre
Maybe you're
l'importance
starting to perceive the
de savoir
importance
différencier les différentes émotions.
of being able to differentiate between different
ressentis.
feelings, different emotions.
Il y a deux grands avantages de savoir
There are
faire
two
ça.
advantages, two big advantages to
La
be able
première,
to
c'est
do
que
that, of being able to
ça
do
fait
that.
une grande différence dans
The
votre
first
qualité de
advantage is
vie.
that it's going to give a
Ceci
big
dans
difference.
votre
It's
vie
going to have a
personnelle.
big difference in your work as professionals, but also
Que vous
in
soyez
your
un
personal
thérapeute
life,
expérimenté
whether you are an experienced therapist
ou que vous cherchez des outils
or
pour
whether
guérir
you're
vos émotions.
looking for tools to heal.
Accéder à la vraie émotion va grandement
Now you
accélérer
perceive
vos
that the advantage of accessing the real emotion is going to allow you to access, to get
Donc,
efficient
accédant
and
au
precise
ressenti
results and
primaire et en
healing.
le libérant,
So by accessing the primary feeling and by liberating the primary feeling, we put back things in motion. We put back life in this part of the body that stayed blocked in the past through the symptom. And in this way, the body is going to function normally by itself, naturally. Another very important aspect to be able to identify emotions is prevention. I like that a lot. Prevention. So now you understood it well, that it is the repression of this primary feeling that had an impact on these cells and that created illness. So if you learn to identify and express this biofeeling for yourself, but also for your clients, your friends, you're going to be able to liberate the cell from this stress, from this trauma. So once this emotion is expressed, it doesn't stay impressed inside the body. So it's a tool, a very precious tool to prevent effectively your illness. It's a very efficient and preventive tool. So how to access past memories? I'm not going to explain in details. I'm just going to give you a little element of for you to understand, some few elements for you to understand and to have an idea about the magical side of biodecoding. So once you've identified this primary feeling, in fact, the work happens all by itself, almost, I would say, almost. Because this primary biofeeling is like a musical piece. You know, when you turn on your radio, and then you hear this music track that takes you back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years back. When you were 15 years old, that you were dancing with your first love. So it is the primary feeling that is going to create this cellular memory, and that is going to allow you to go back to the origin of your past experience. The primary feeling is kind of like this music track. It's kind of like a tunnel, express tunnel, that is going to take you back in time. So you can already conclude that the technique is simple and also natural. We do this all the time, every day, without even thinking about it. And what Christian did is that he decomposed the process. How? In a way, so he did it in a way so that you can replicate it in your life and in your practice. And this time with awareness, knowing what you're looking for.
Et donc, c'est le premier outil que vous allez
So it's the
apprendre
first
dans le
tool
premier
that you are
module
going to learn in the
de
first
Biodecodage de
module
Christian Flașche.
in Biodecoding of Christian Flașche, in the courses of Biodecoding of Christian Flașche.
Donc voilà, c'est ce que je voulais vous expliquer aujourd'hui.
So that's what I've
Je voulais
prepared
vous
for
remercier
you
pour
for
votre
today.
écoute.
I'd like to thank you for listening.
J'espère que cette conférence vous a apporté des
I
informations
hope that this
qui ont éveillé en vous
conference
le
brought to
désir
you
de
some
cheminer
information that
sur le chemin de la
that raise in you
conscience
the desire to advance, to
Encore
move
un grand
forward
merci
on
à
your
vous. Merci à
road
Sophie
towards
et à tous
healing,
les
towards
organisateurs pour
well-being.
cette journée.
And I thank Sophie and the organizers of
Une
today,
journée de retour vers soi.
which is a journey of going back to ourselves. Thank you,
Et à très bientôt.
and see you soon, hopefully.
Merci Marianne pour ces
Now Sophie's
explications
talking
précises.
and saying thank you, Marianne, for these explanations that are
Alors,
precise, that are bringing more
je
precision.
propose de faire
And
une petite
I
pause
suggest that we take a little break,
pour satisfaire peut-être des
maybe a
besoins
technical break to
biologiques.
satisfy maybe some biological needs you have.
Et nous nous retrouvons dans 15 minutes.
And we're going to come back in 15 minutes,
Ce que
where we will
Linda,
listen with joy
aura
to what
à nous
Linda
transmettre.
has for us prepared.
Nous avons vu avec Christian et avec Marianne
So we saw with Christian and Miriam so far
l'intérêt du
the
décodage
interest of
biologique.
biological decoding.
Nous avons vu que si nous sommes malades, par exemple,
We saw that, for example, when we have an illness,
eh bien, nous aurons des outils pour
we're going
comprendre
to
le
have
langage qui
tools
s'exprime à travers la
to
maladie.
understand the language that's being expressed through this illness, by this illness.
Nous allons aussi trouver des ressources.
We're also going to
pour
find resources
l'homéostasie, c'est-à-dire l'équilibre
so
du
that
corps.
we find back the balance in our body.
Comprendre et modifier si cela est nécessaire.
Understand
bien sûr,
and modify if
notre
that is
réponse
necessary,
face
of
à un
course,
stress ou à un
our
traumatisme.
response to stress or to a
C'est-à-dire
trauma.
mieux comprendre notre structure interne.
To say it in a different way, it's about understanding our inner
Maintenant,
structure.
Je sais que parmi vous, il y a beaucoup
Now, I
de
know that some of
thérapeutes.
you, amongst you, there are many therapists.
Donc, qu'est-ce que le biodécodage va apporter
So, what
à
is
votre
biodecoding
thérapie?
going to give you in addition to the therapy that you're
Comme
proposing? What is it
si bien
going to add?
expliqué
What's the value?
Marianne, nous avons vu
Just
que
like
cela va nous
Marianne explained
permettre
to you,
d'orienter
we
et
saw that
de
is going to
guider
allow
le
to
patient
guide
vers son
and
ressenti.
orient the client toward his biofeeling,
Retrouver l'émotion primaire qui est à
to
l'origine
find
du traumatisme.
again the original, the primary emotion that was at the
Cette
origin of
émotion
the
qui
trauma,
a
of the shock.
déclenché le
This
mécanisme
emotion that
biologique.
triggered the biological mechanism.
Parce que pour nous, en décodage biologique,
Because
la
for
maladie,
us in
c'est une
biological
solution de
decoding,
survie.
illness is a solution, is a survival solution.
C'est une solution biologique pour
It is a
sortir de ce
biological
traumatisme.
solution to get out of this trauma.
Nous aussi, en tant que thérapeute, nous allons
And
accompagner
as
notre
therapists,
patient
we are
à
going
quitter cette
to
émotion.
accompany the patient through the liberation of this emotion.
Mais nous allons aussi l'aider à prendre conscience des
And we're
croyances
going
qui
to
se sont
help
déjà
him
installées
to become
à ce
aware
moment
of the
précis de son
beliefs
histoire.
that were instilled at this precise moment of his life.
Nous allons même pouvoir lui faire prendre conscience
We're going
de
to
la
even help
stratégie
him
qu'il
become aware
utilise
of the
depuis de
strategy that
nombreuses
he's
années,
using and been using for several years now,
n'est peut-être pas la bonne.
which may not be the right one for him.
Et nous allons l'aider à trouver
And we're going to
lui-même
help him
sa
to
propre
find himself.
stratégie.
We're going to help him by himself to find his own new strategy that is more
efficace.
convenient for him, that is more efficient for him.
Et même, nous allons pouvoir aller
And we're
modifier
going to
le
even
sens qui a
going
été
to go
donné
modify
à l'événement
the meaning
traumatisant.
that was given to the traumatizing event.
Parce que, vous savez, le mental, il fait pas la
Because
différence entre hier,
our
demain,
mental does
il vit tout cela
not
comme si
differentiate
c'était
between
aujourd'hui.
yesterday and tomorrow. We live it as if it's all happening today.
Mais laissons la parole à Linda qui va
And
nous
now I will
parler
let
de
Linda
ces
tell
des
you
deux grands conflits
of
que
the
l'on peut
two biggest
trouver
conflicts that we can
en
find
décodage biologique.
in biological decoding
Quand vous
that you're
inscrivez à
interested
la
in.
formation,
And when you are going to enroll in the training,
au tout premier module, eh bien,
In the very first module, you're going to discover the different conflicts we're talking about.
Linda, bonjour. T'oublies pas d'allumer ton
Hello,
micro.
Linda.
Bienvenue à cette conférence.
Welcome to this conference.
Merci Diana, merci Elena et bonjour.
So Linda's here saying good morning to everyone, and thank you, Sophie, Linda, Diana, and Elena. I welcome everyone here, and I'm happy to see you today and to present in a few words this theme about conflicts.
Donc, j'exerce aujourd'hui en tant que psychobiothérapeute.
So I'm a practitioner, I'm a psychobiotherapist today,
Et aussi depuis 2018.
and
en tant
also
que
since
formatrice dans
2018,
l'école.
I'm a trainer at the school.
J'ai commencé mon parcours il y a très longtemps.
I
avec,
started
l'énergie
that a long time ago with the energetic world when I was 20 years old.
Et puis ensuite, je me suis intéressée à l'ostéopathie.
And then I got interested in osteopathy and became an
Et
osteopath.
d'autres disciplines encore.
I also was interested in other disciplines.
Mais c'est vraiment le décodage biologique qui m'a permis jusqu'alors
And other than osteopathy, but it was really biological decoding that allowed me ever since
de faire le lien entre
I met
le
biodecoding
corps,
to
l'esprit et
find the link between the body and the spirit,
permettre de travailler avec
and to allow
la
working
magie
with
de ce qui est vivant en
the
nous.
magic of what's alive inside of us.
Alors la question que l'on se pose tous,
So the
c'est
question that
simplement,
we ask ourselves
qu'est-ce
is,
qui fait que nous
finally,
tombons malades?
how come do we get ill?
Quand une douleur ou un symptôme apparaît,
When a pain or a symptom appears,
nous cherchons en général
we're
à
going to
comprendre
generally try to understand,
pourquoi notre corps n'est plus
try to
n'est
find
plus
out
sous notre
why
contrôle.
our body is no longer under our control,
Pourquoi les choses nous
why
échappent,
things are escaping us,
quelque chose dysfonctionne.
why things are not malfunctioning.
Et si nous faisons cela, c'est pour la simple raison
And why do we do that?
que nous avons besoin
We
de
do it for the
confirmation
simple reason
par
is
rapport
that
à la maladie.
we need to be reassured concerning illness, to find reassurance.
Alors le plus souvent, cela nous conduit à chercher
So most often,
une justification
that is going
rationnelle.
to get us to find a rational justification,
Une explication à la survenue d'une maladie ou d'un symptôme.
an explanation to the symptom that is emerging.
On a besoin de comprendre d'où cela
We
vient,
need to understand
selon
where
nos
it's coming
actions.
from, what's its cause, what's causing it.
Et dans une grande majorité des cas, on va chercher
And in the majority of the cases, we're going to look for a cause, a reason that is outside of us, external to
Par
us.
exemple, on va se dire
For
j'ai un
example,
lumbago,
we
j'ai
would
des
say,
douleurs
I
au
have
lumbaire.
a lumbago, I have
Mais c'est bien normal, j'ai porté ce
I
canapé
have
pendant
pain
longtemps.
in I have pain, and it's because of the chair I sit in all day.
On va aussi se dire je suis en dépression, mais c'est normal, je viens d'être licenciée.
My back aches with this lumbago, and we can say that if I have a headache, it's
On va encore
because
se dire
of
j'ai
the
une
work that I'm
indigestion,
doing.
c'est normal, j'ai mangé des chocolats. Alors le fait de trouver une explication, une cause à nos symptômes,
And I can have pain in my stomach, and I can say, yeah, it's because of the chocolate that I
c'est
ate
déjà
or the
quelque chose
food
de
that I
rassurant.
ate. And finding that cause
Parce qu'on
kind
va
of
se sentir
reassures us,
démuni face à à une réaction de notre
because
corps qui nous
you
échappe.
might feel powerless toward this reaction that our body is making.
Alors, est-ce que les événements qu'on
So,
vient de citer sont réellement à
do
l'origine
the
de nos
events I
troubles et
cited
symptômes?
are the events I cited at the origin of our symptoms, really?
Est-ce qu'il n'est pas possible de porter quelque chose
Isn't
de
it
très lourd
possible
et
to carry
finalement, pour
something
autant, ne pas avoir
really
de pouvoir
heavy
dessus?
without, for example, having this lumbago? If that's what I'm thinking is the reason.
Je crois que vous avez tous fait cette expérience.
I guess you all had that kind of experience.
N'avez-vous pas vous-même ou dans votre entourage des personnes qui ont été licenciées de leur travail?
Didn't you meet around you, or maybe it happened to you that you were unemployed?
Est-ce qu'elles ont toutes fait une dépression?
Did all these persons you know who left their jobs, did they all get a depression? Fortunately not.
Et puis, je suis sûre que vous avez tous déjà
And
abusé
I'm
de
sure
chocolat,
that you've all
etc.
abused of chocolate or another kind of food
sans être forcément malade.
without necessarily being sick of it.
Alors, les choses ne sont donc pas si simples.
So things are not as simple as that.
Peut-être que ce n'est pas la faute du meuble trop lourd.
Maybe it's not what I held and that was heavy.
Peut-être que ce n'est pas le
It wasn't its
licenciement ou
fault.
le chocolat.
Maybe it's not the chocolate's fault.
Qui sont les responsables de nos symptômes et de nos maladies?
Or my termination, my layoff at work that are at the origin of our diseases.
D'ailleurs, même la médecine traditionnelle
Conventional
qui avait
medicine,
pour
as you
habitude
know,
de dire que la cigarette était la
who usually
responsable du
would
cancer du poumon,
say, for example, that cigarettes is the main cause of lung cancer,
que la consommation d'alcool était responsable du cancer
that
du foie,
the consumption of liquor is responsible for the liver cancer.
découvre qu'avec toute la prévention qui est faite
Even
depuis de
conventional
nombreuses années
medicine
maintenant,
discovered that with all the prevention techniques that were discovered and initiated for years now,
une grande majorité des personnes
there's a
affectées aujourd'hui
majority
de cancer
of
du poumon ou
people
du
who
foie
have today lung or liver cancer
sont pourtant celles qui ont un mode de vie très sain.
they themselves have a very healthy lifestyle.
Elles ne fument pas,
They
elles ne
don't
consomment pas
smoke,
d'alcool,
they don't drink alcohol,
elles consomment des fruits ou des légumes bio de leur jardin.
they consume organic vegetables and fruits that they themselves they grow in their own gardens.
Et malgré tout, le cancer est dans leur
And
corps.
despite all that, cancer is in their body.
C'est donc bien qu'il y a autre chose.
So this means that there is something else, another factor.
Alors, on peut s'interroger de savoir s'il y a des événements
So we're
qui sont
going to wonder
responsables de notre maladie
whether there
et d'autres
are
non.
events that are responsible for our illness and other events that are not responsible for getting into disease.
Et dans ce cas, comment on fait pour les
And in
distinguer?
this case, how to distinguish between them, between the events that can
Alors, Christian et
cause
Marianne
illness
vous
and
ont
others that
apporté
don't.
quelques éléments de réponse.
So Christian and Marianne already gave you some elements to answer that question,
Puisque tous les événements ne
because
sont pas
all
en apte
events,
à créer un symptôme.
because not all events are by nature, in their nature, can create a symptom.
Tous les événements ne sont
All
pas
the
des
events,
biochocs.
not all the events are bioshocks.
Seuls les biochocs seront de nature
Only
à déclencher des
bioshocks
symptômes.
can, by their nature, as bioshocks, they can trigger symptoms.
Et puis vous avez vu avec Marianne que ce n'est pas la
Only
nature des
bioshocks,
événements
not all
en
events.
eux-mêmes qui compte,
And so you saw with Marianne that it's not the nature of the event itself that is important,
mais le ressenti vécu
but
par
the
la personne
feeling
lors de cet événement.
experienced by the person during this event.
Ce doit être un ressenti négatif et d'une
It can
forte
be a
intensité
negative
pour
feeling
déclencher le symptôme.
and of a strong intensity in order to trigger a symptom.
Alors, comme Sophie vous le disait en préambule,
So as Sophie
en psychothèse
introduced,
biologique, on va
in
distinguer
biological
deux
decoding, we're
types
going to distinguish between two types of events,
les
two types of
événements
conflicts:
déclenchants et les événements
triggering conflicts and programming conflicts, or triggering events and programming events.
Quand je vous parlais tout à l'heure de porter
When I was
être licencié,
giving you the
manger du
example
chocolat,
of a dismissal, eating chocolate, carrying something heavy,
ce sont tous des événements
these
déclenchants.
are all triggering events. These are all examples of triggering events.
C'est-à-dire que ce sont des événements qui ont déclenché la maladie.
This
qui ont
means that
déclenché le
these are
symptôme.
events that triggered the symptoms, that triggered illness.
Ça veut donc dire que la personne a vécu l'événement d'une
It also
certaine
means that this
manière,
person experienced the event in a certain way, in a specific way,
en fonction de ses filtres,
depending on this person's own
c'est-à-dire qu'elle
filters.
a donné un sens
This
particulier
means
à l'événement
that this
en
person
fonction de
gave
ses
a
goûts,
meaning
selon sa
to this
culture.
event in function of its own, the person's own culture, beliefs,
Donc cela veut dire
perceptions.
que si au moment de l'événement
So this
déclenchant,
means that
la
if at the
personne
moment
déclenche
of the
un symptôme,
triggering event, the person triggers a symptom,
c'est parce qu'elle avait déjà en elle un programme
it's because
pour déclencher
this
ce
person
symptôme.
already had in himself or herself a program
Que l'on appelle événement programmé.
that we call a programming event.
Donc le conflit déclenchant révèle
So the
ce
triggering conflict is going to reactivate, is going to
qui
awaken
existe déjà
the
chez la
program
personne.
that already exists within the person.
Le conflit déclenchant
The
ouvre
triggering
ou active
event
ce programme.
opens and activates this program.
Mais le conflit déclenchant n'est pas vraiment le
But the
responsable
triggering conflicts isn't by itself
de la maladie.
the responsible one for the illness or for the symptom.
Alors imaginez que vous ayez un hématome
So
sur le bras
imagine that on your arm,
et un ami qui veut vous montrer quelque chose un petit peu plus loin
a hematoma on your
va vous prendre
arms,
par le bras
and a friend
et vous emmener.
who wants to show you something far away. He takes you by your arm, by your wrist, let's say, the side of your arm, by your wrist, and tells you, let's
Au
go
moment où
see
il
it.
prend le bras, il dit
And
viens
he takes
voir,
you far
vous allez
away. And at the
hurler.
moment she says, come, let's go see, you're going to shout out of pain.
Bien sûr, cet ami va pas comprendre pourquoi vous
Of
avez
course,
mal.
this friend doesn't understand how come you're so hurt, how come you're feeling so
Comment
much
il a pu
pain.
vous faire si mal? Il vous a juste pris par le bras.
How is it possible? He just took you by the hand.
Prendre quelqu'un par le bras n'est pas de nature à faire mal.
Taking something by the arm does not cause pain by itself.
Cet instant où cet ami vous prend par le bras,
But it's
c'est
that
l'événement
moment
déclenchant.
where this friend is taking you by the arm that is a triggering event.
C'est l'événement qui déclenche votre
It is the
douleur.
event that triggers your pain.
Mais est-ce que c'est vraiment de la faute de votre ami
But
qui
is
vous
it
a pris par le
really
bras si vous
your
avez
friend's
cette douleur?
mistake who took you by your arm and caused this pain? Is it because of him?
Est-ce qu'il est vraiment responsable de votre douleur?
Is he really responsible for your pain?
Et en fait, vous allez lui expliquer,
Actually, you're going
à
to
cet endroit,
explain to your
vous
friends
avez une blessure, vous
that
avez
at this
un hématome qui est là depuis
place
quelque
in your
temps.
arm, you have a hematoma that was there for quite some time.
Et donc finalement, cet ami n'a fait que réveiller,
Hematoma is a
réactiver
kind
quelque
of
chose qui
bruise,
était présent.
and his gesture of touching this bruise kind of triggered
Oui, il a
this pain.
déclenché la douleur,
It triggered the pain, yes,
mais la douleur n'a été
but the
possible que
pain
parce que vous aviez
was
déjà
not
une
possible,
blessure à
wouldn't
cet
have been
endroit.
possible unless you already had a bruise at this place.
Et donc, s'il y a cette blessure, c'est
And
bien
so
qu'il y a un événement
there's
à
this
l'origine de
bruise,
cette
there's
blessure
this
ou de cet
wound.
hématome.
This means that there is something at the origin of this wound that originated
C'est ce qu'on appelle l'événement
to this
programmé.
wound. This is what we call the programming event.
Alors, on a le choix quand on découvre qu'on a une blessure.
So when we discover that we have a wound, we have the choice.
C'est de passer sa vie à faire attention, de ne pas se cogner dessus,
We have the choice of either spend our lives being careful and trying not to let it touch
faire
anything,
attention que personne d'autre ne vienne
to pay
appuyer
attention
sur
to make
votre
sure
blessure.
that no one comes and touches your wound so that not to trigger
C'est-à-dire
any pain.
espérer qu'il n'y ait pas d'autres événements déclenchants.
This means, in other words, you can spend your life hoping that there
est-ce
won't
vraiment
be
possible?
any triggering events. But is it really possible?
Alors, on peut aussi décider de s'occuper de cette blessure
Alternatively, we can also decide to take care of that wound,
de faire en sorte qu'elle cicatrise.
to help it to heal,
Et comme cela, ensuite, peu importe qui viendra
to cure it.
appuyer à cet endroit
And
qui a
then it
fait
doesn't
mal.
matter what touches this, what presses on it, or
C'est-à-dire
what
que
it
la
comes in
blessure est de
contact
retrouver
with.
cet événement programmant pour le
Doesn't
solutionner.
matter what this wound will come in contact with if it's healed.
Alors, tout comme nos ordinateurs, on a à l'intérieur
So
de
just
nous
like our computers, inside of us, we have programs.
et imaginez deux ordinateurs.
And imagine two computers,
Un ordinateur qui a le programme Excel et un ordinateur qui n'a
one
pas le programme
that
Excel.
has the program Excel, Microsoft Excel,
Et puis, vous recevez sur vos deux ordinateurs
and
une
then you
pièce jointe.
receive on your computer an attachment.
C'est l'événement déclenchant.
It's the triggering event.
L'ordinateur qui a le programme Excel
So if on your
va
computer
activer son
you
programme
have
et
the
ouvrir
program, the
le
Excel
lien.
program, then you will be able to open the attachment.
Vous allez donc pouvoir lire le tableau Excel.
And you're
C'est
going to be able to
l'équivalent
access
du
the
symptôme qui se déclenche.
file. And this is the equivalent of the symptom that is being triggered in your body.
Donc ici, il y a une pièce jointe,
So here,
c'est l'événement déclenchant.
there's the
Et il y a
attachment.
le
It's
programme
the triggering
Excel
event.
qui ouvre la pièce
There's the
jointe,
program that is Excel that is going to allow opening this
l'événement
attachment.
programmant.
This is the programming event that will allow
Maintenant,
the opening
l'ordinateur qui n'a
of
pas le programme
this
Excel,
attachment. So let's look into another case. If the computer does not have the
il
Excel
n'a pas le
program
programme adapté
installed,
pour ouvrir la
so it
pièce
doesn't
jointe,
have the adapted program to open this specific attachment.
donc cette pièce jointe ne s'ouvrira pas.
So this
Vous ne pourrez
attachment
pas
will
ouvrir
not
le
be
tableau.
open. You will not be able to access it, to read it,
C'est-à-dire
to
que le
read the
symptôme
information
ne
in
se
it.
déclenche pas.
This means that the symptom is not going to be triggered.
Ici, il y a bien la pièce jointe, l'événement déclenchant.
So the triggering event, the attachment is here,
Mais il n'y a pas le programme pour l'ouvrir.
but there's no program to open it.
Et donc, il n'y aura pas de symptômes.
So there is not going to be any symptom.
C'est un petit peu comme dans les familles, parfois il y a des
It's a little
cancers
bit like in families, sometimes there are cancers.
et vous pouvez faire une analyse pour vérifier si vous aussi vous avez le gène du cancer.
You can test or do an analysis to verify whether you also are carrying the genes related to cancer.
Et donc, si on trouve que vous avez
And
aussi le gène du
if
cancer, que vous avez hérité de
you
votre
find that you
famille,
do have this gene,
alors vous allez poser la question au médecin.
you're going to ask the doctor,
J'ai le
How
gène
come?
du cancer, est-ce que ça veut
I
dire
have
que
the
moi
gene of
aussi je vais avoir
cancer.
un cancer?
And does that mean that I am going to have cancer also?
Et le médecin va vous répondre non.
The doctor is going to answer, no, not necessarily.
Parce que dans cette situation, vous
Because
avez
in
bien
this
le
situation,
cancer,
you have the program, the cancer program,
mais c'est tout à fait possible qu'au cours de votre vie,
but it's very possible that along your life,
il n'y a aucun événement qui vienne déclencher l'ouverture de ce
that there
programme.
won't be any triggering event that is going to trigger to open this program.
Cela veut dire que pour qu'il y ait une maladie, un symptôme,
This means that for us to have a symptom or an
il
illness,
faut qu'il y ait les deux. Un
we
conflit
should
programmant plus
have
un
both.
conflit déclenchant.
A programming event or a programming conflict plus a triggering conflict.
Si on n'a que l'événement déclenchant et pas le
If we
programme,
only have the triggering event but no programs, then we don't have any symptoms.
et si on a le programme,
And if we have the
il n'y a pas
program,
d'événement qui vienne le
but there's no
déclencher,
triggering events that are going to come
il y
and
aura pas de
trigger it,
symptôme.
then there's no symptom either.
C'est plutôt une bonne nouvelle.
It's more of a good news.
Mais par contre, ces événements ou ces
However,
conflits programmants,
These events, these programming conflicts,
c'est des programmes comme il y a dans nos ordinateurs
like the programs that we have in our computer,
et on a plein de programmes à l'intérieur de nous.
and we realize that we have lots of
Et le
programs
souci, c'est
inside
qu'on
of
sait
us,
pas lesquels.
and we don't know which is which and what they are.
Parce que ce sont des programmes dont on a hérité
Well, these are programs
de
that we
notre
inherited from our
famille,
ancestors, from our family, maybe.
des programmes qui nous viennent de la
Some
société dans
others
laquelle on vit.
are programs that come from society, the society in which we live, the culture
Et des
in
programmes
which we
qui
live.
nous viennent de toutes nos
And then there are
premières
programs that come from
expériences.
our very first experiences in our life.
Puisqu'à chaque fois qu'on vit
Because
la
each
chose pour la
time
première fois,
we
on y met
experience
un
something
sens,
for the
on a
very
un
first time,
ressenti, on y met un sens.
we give it a meaning. We create a sense for it.
Donc à chaque première expérience, sans que l'on s'en
So
rende
it's
compte,
every first experience in our life, without knowing
un
of
programme
it,
va s'établir à l'intérieur de nous.
a program is going to be installed inside of us.
Bien sûr, il y a des programmes positifs,
Of course, there are
positifs,
lots of positive programs that are resourceful,
et des programmes négatifs.
and there can be negative programs also.
Ces programmes sont là pour que l'on
These
puisse
programs are here
réagir
so that we are able to adapt
au cas où l'on revive à nouveau le
in
même
case we experience again the same feeling.
Je vais vous donner un exemple.
I'm going to give you an example for that.
Imaginez une petite fille de 4-5 ans.
Imagine
qui
a
est à
little
table
girl
à côté de
of
son
4 or
papa.
5 years of age, and she's sitting at dinner next to her dad.
Et soudainement, il lui
And
tombe
suddenly, he slaps her in the face.
C'est la première fois qu'elle reçoit
It's
une
the
frappe.
very first time
Avant,
that
elle
she
savait pas que
receives
c'était possible.
a slap from her father. She didn't know before that it would be possible, that it were possible.
Quand elle reçoit la gifle, alors elle a
And
sent
when
un
she gets the slap,
ressenti
instantaneously
de
she has a
l'événement.
feeling and she gives a meaning to this event.
Et le sens qu'elle y donne, c'est
And the meaning that she
le danger
gives
était tout
is
près,
the
je
danger
n'ai
was
pas vu
so
arriver.
close and I didn't see it coming.
Et sans qu'elle le sache,
So without knowing it,
à l'intérieur d'elle, un
inside of
programme
her is going to be installed a program.
et le programme inconscient
And the
qui
program,
s'inscrit à l'intérieur
the
d'elle,
subconscious
c'est
program that
il
is
faut voir le
encrypted
danger
inside of her
apparaître tout près.
is that I should see the danger that arises from so close.
Parce que le programme inconscient
Because the subconscious
s'intègre en nous,
program that is installed in us,
qui s'intègre à l'intérieur de cette petite
that
fille,
is integrated inside this little girl,
c'est la solution qui aurait été
is the
idéale,
solution that would have been ideal.
c'est la solution que cette petite fille aurait aimé avoir
It's the solution that she wished she had
et qui aurait permis de ne pas recevoir de claque.
and that would have allowed her not to get slapped.
Puisque si elle avait pu savoir et voir que le danger est tout près, et là, elle peut
If she
l'éviter.
knew that danger can be so close to her, and she would have saw it, and she would have
Et suite à cette première
prevented
fois,
it.
à cette expérience, il ne se passe
So,
rien de particulier.
following this first time, nothing happens particularly for this little girl. No symptoms.
Elle ne déclenche pas de maladie, pas de symptômes.
She doesn't trigger any illness.
C'est juste un programme qui
It's just a
s'inscrit à
program
l'intérieur
that
d'elle.
is installed inside of her.
Un programme pour se prémunir au
A
cas où
program
ça
so
se
that
reproduise.
she would be equipped in case, just in case, in the future she needs it.
Et ce programme va
And this
s'inscrire
program is going
psychique,
to
corporel,
be
mental, énergétique.
encrypted on different levels: cerebral, energetic, emotional, bodily.
Et puis, quelques années plus tard,
And then a few years
cette
later,
petite fille est une femme de 50
this little
ans
girl
qui vient me voir
is a woman who's at her 55th age.
parce qu'elle
She's
a déclenché
55
une
years old and
myopie
she comes to see me because she
à la
triggered
suite de son licenciement.
a myopia following her dismissal
Et
from
elle
work.
raconte, il y a un nouveau directeur qui arrive
And
dans l'entreprise.
she's telling me the story. She says there's a new director coming into the
Il met en
enterprise.
place beaucoup de choses, il y a beaucoup de changements.
There's a lot of changing he's
Et
instilling,
je n'ai pas vu que mon poste était menacé.
but I didn't see that
Mon
my
travail était menacé.
that my position was threatened, that my job was threatened. I didn't see it.
Et donc, à 55 ans, elle vit
So
à
she's
nouveau le même
55
ressenti.
years old
Le
and she
danger
experiences
était tout
again
près, je l'ai
the
pas vu
feeling the
arriver.
danger was so close, I didn't see it coming.
Et ce ressenti va,
And this feeling
le ressenti de cet
is
événement
going
déclenchant va aller
to
rencontrer l'événement programmant.
connect to meet up with the programming event related to the same feeling,
Va aller ouvrir le programme
and is going to open the program,
qui avait été mis en place quand elle était petite.
the program that she installed when she was a little girl.
Et ce programme, c'est être adapté pour voir
And this
le danger
program
qui est
is how to adapt in order to see the danger that is coming up close.
Et la solution biologique du corps,
The
c'est
biological solution of the body is to see from very
avoir une très
close
bonne
range,
vision de tout
to
près,
have an excellent vision, an excellent close vision, to see
et ne
closer,
pas voir flou
better,
de loin, puisque danger est
And it's
très
okay to see, to not see correctly from far away, because the danger is not far away. The danger is close to me. So I'm amplifying my short vision. What counts is my short vision.
Alors, les conflits déclenchants
So the triggering conflicts
des événements
are
dramatiques
not
dans nos vies.
necessarily dramatic events in our lives.
L'événement déclenchant peut même
The triggering
être un
events
événement qui passe
can
inaperçu
even be an event that goes unnoticed,
et il peut arriver à n'importe quel moment.
and
de notre
it
vie.
can happen at any moment of our life.
Il suffit que cet événement comporte l'un des éléments
It's
de
enough that
l'événement
this
programmé.
event includes one of the programming feeling, one of the elements of the programming conflict. It can be the smell,
Un ressenti,
it can be a feeling,
un lieu,
a place,
un mot,
a word,
qui fait que notre corps se souvient de l'événement programmé.
through which our body is going to remember the programming event. So one element of the programming event is going to remind our body of the event. So during the therapeutic work, we're not going to work on the triggering conflict itself,
Car même si ça pouvait
because
aider,
even if it helps,
on prendrait le risque qu'un nouvel événement vienne à
we're
nouveau
taking the
déclencher
risk
le
that
programme.
if we don't work on the programming event, we take the risk that another triggering event in the future is going to
Puisque si on ne
trigger
change
that
pas
same
le
program.
alors le problème
Because as
reste.
long as we do not change the program, the problem is going to come back again, to be triggered again in the
Au
future.
prochain événement que la
And at
personne
the
va
nearest
avoir ce
event
ressenti-là,
where this person is going to feel that feeling,
alors le programme s'activera à nouveau
the program is going to be reactivated,
et le symptôme arrivera à nouveau.
and the symptom is going to arrive again.
Le but en thérapie
The
va
symptom
donc
will
être
come back.
de retrouver cet instant
So this
présent
therapy is going to be all about finding this programming conflict,
pour le solutionner,
to resolve it,
pour que cet événement programmant
so that this
n'interfère plus
programming
hors de son contexte.
event no longer interferes outside its own context,
Puisque la solution
because
proposée par le corps,
the solution suggested by the body,
la solution de ce programme n'est
the
plus
solution of
adaptée à
this
l'instant
program, is no longer adapted to the here and now, to the present time.
Je vais vous donner un autre exemple. C'est un jeune homme qui est invité chez
Now I'll
un
give you
ami.
another example of this young man who was invited to his friend's house.
Avec le confinement, ils ne se sont pas vus depuis
And
un moment.
with the lockdown, and they haven't met in a long time.
Et quand il arrive chez ses amis, il y a
And
un
when
chien.
he arrives there, as he's arriving there, there's a dog. He meets on his
Et
way a
il est
dog.
terrifié, il
And
est
he's terrified.
incapable d'avancer en direction de
He
ses amis.
is unable to move toward his friends.
Et ses amis lui disent, mais c'est notre chien.
His
il
friends
est
tell him,
gentil,
but
il
it's
vient,
our
il
dog.
risque
He's
rien.
very nice, calm. There's no risks.
Mais rien n'y fait,
But
il
he
a très
can't.
peur que le chien l'attaque.
Nothing works. He's really scared that the dog is going to attack him.
Consciemment, il sait que c'est idiot, que le chien est certainement
Consciously, he knows
ordinaire,
that it's idiotic, that he knows that this dog is really nice and he's not going to attack him, but his body can't move. He's unable to move.
Bien sûr, tout cela est en réaction à un
Of course,
événement
all
programmé.
this is in reaction to a programming event,
Un événement dont il ne se souvient pas parce
an
qu'il était
event
petit,
of which that he does not remember because he was so young back then. He was 3 years old.
mais ces cellules Et c'est
But
là
his
que son corps se souvienne.
cells of his body remember this event.
À l'âge de 3 ans, il a vu son
So at
papa
the age of
se faire
3
attaquer par un
years,
chien.
he sees his father being attacked by a dog.
Et donc la solution aujourd'hui
And
qu'il
so the
offre
solution
au corps,
today
c'est de ne
that
pas
his
bouger.
body is offering is not to move
Face au chien.
when there is a dog.
Là aussi, c'est la solution
Here
que
also, it is the
son papa
solution
n'avait pas, mais qu'il aurait été bien
that
qu'il
this
ait au
father
moment du
didn't
drame.
have, but that he wished he had during the event.
Ça aurait été la solution idéale,
Should have been the ideal solution for father,
car s'il n'avait pas bougé face au chien,
because if he hadn't moved when
il
he
ne se
saw the
serait pas fait
dog,
attaquer.
he wouldn't have been attacked.
Mais aujourd'hui, pour ce jeune homme qui va voir ses amis,
Today, for this man,
cette solution en réaction à l'événement programmant n'est plus du tout adaptée à la réalité de la situation.
because he is in link with this programming event, he's no
Alors
longer
l'objectif va être
connected to
travailler cet événement programmant
the initial event. He's no longer adapted to the current situation. So what he needs to do is to
Pour la
liberate.
personne, ce sera comme si elle pouvait avoir de nouvelles lunettes.
So this person, while working on this event, is kind of like going to transform it, kind of like having a new eyeglasses through which seeing the world differently.
Filtre des événements programmants.
So this will allow him no longer to perceive life, his presence, through his old programming events
Mais
or
tout
any
simplement
programming
parce qu'on voit
event,
l'événement tel qu'il est.
but simply to experience the event as it is.
Et l'événement traumatique,
And the
le
traumatic
programmant
event,
qui aura été libéré,
the programming event that was liberated,
fait que les futurs événements ne déclencheront plus de programme puisque le programme n'est plus là.
when the program is neutralized, then
Et il n'y
there
aura
are
donc
no
plus
longer going to
d'apparition
be any
de
triggering
symptômes,
events.
de maladies ou de comportements inadéquats. Voilà,
And
je vous
so
remercie.
there are
Maintenant,
not
je
going to
vais
be any
vous guider
unadapted
sur les
solution
événements
in
déclenchants
the
et les
future
événements programmants.
for whatever situation that they're experiencing.
Je ne sais pas s'il y a des questions sur ce
So
thème-là.
I don't know if you have any questions on this theme. That's what I would like to share with you today.
Ok. Ben, merci Linda
Merci à vous.
de ton exposé clair, des exemples très précis.
I also be saying thank you,
des
Linda,
métaphores
for
que tu
your
as utilisées.
the metaphors that you use for
Avec plaisir.
Et du langage
for the things that you
simple,
shared
que tu
with
as
us in a very
utilisé,
simple
qui
language
permet aux
that
gens
you
de se
use and
faire
that allows
une
people
meilleure idée
to
de
have a
ce que
better
c'est
idea
qu'un déclenchant et un
of what
programmant.
is a triggering event and a
Puis
programming
dans la
event.
formation, on met des images, alors c'est encore plus facile.
Ouais, exactement. Merci.
Merci.
So thank you.
Voilà, donc on
So
fait une petite pause de 5 minutes
we're going
ou
to take a break now.
on commence tout de suite. nous arrivons à la dernière partie
So here
de
we get to
cette
the last part
vidéoconférence.
of this video conference.
Je vais avoir le plaisir de vous parler d'un thème très particulier.
And it will be my pleasure to talk to you about this
Je vais
last
vous parler,
part.
de la formation.
And I'm going to tell you more about the
Car
training,
je suis certaine que tous les
because I'm
exposés
certain
de
that
Christian,
all
de
that was
Marianne
exposed
et de
by
Linda,
Christian, Marianne, and Linda
eh bien, ont réveillé en vous l'envie de vous
have
former.
awakened in you the desire to learn more.
Mais avant, laissez-moi me présenter. Je suis Sophie Favarel.
So I start by telling you more about
Alors, j'ai
myself.
plusieurs,
My name
casquettes
is Sophie
dans
Favarel, and
ma
I
vie.
wear many hats in my life.
Je suis éducatrice sportive
I
et
am
ergonome.
I'm a sports coach and
Puis
ergonomic
j'ai fait
coach,
des études de psychothérapie.
and then I studied psychotherapy.
J'ai découvert le décodage biologique
I discovered then biological decoding,
qui a vraiment donné une orientation très précise
which really gave me
à ma
a
vie
precise
professionnelle.
direction in my life as a professional.
Je suis constellatrice familiale,
I am also a family constellator,
hypnothérapeute.
a hypnotherapist.
J'ai aussi une formation en comment ça s'appelle ce truc? En programmation neuro-linguistique.
I'm also trained in neurolinguistic programming,
Je suis formatrice de l'école de Christian Flέφche depuis
and I'm a
2016.
trainer in the School of Biodecoding of Christian Flέφche since
Depuis 2 ans,
2016.
je suis
And for the past
coordonnatrice
2 years, I'm a
de
coordinator
de l'école
with
crânio-sacré.
the Russian school,
J'ai eu
craniosacral
le
school.
plaisir d'enseigner à de
I
nombreux
had the
stagiaires.
pleasure to teach many students in Russia so far.
Je sais qu'il y en a certains parmi nous.
I know that they are here. Many of them are
Donc,
here
je profite
with
de
us today.
l'occasion pour les saluer
So I
du
take
fond
the
du cœur.
opportunity to send them my hellos
Parce que, vous
with
savez,
all my heart.
en 2 ans de formation,
Because you know that for the past
il y a
2
des liens qui
years
se créent.
of training, or during
Vous
2
verrez,
years of
en
training, you're
devenant
going to
très
realize that
intime
there
tous
are
les uns
links that are made. We work intimately together. So
Mais
there are
laissez-moi
connections.
vous parler de, voilà,
And so
qu'est-ce que
let
c'est
me
que la
know, let me
formation en
tell you
décodage
more
biologique?
about what is this training all about, the training in
Je vais
biological
donc
decoding.
partager mon écran parce que
So I'm going
je
to
suis
share
très
my
visuelle.
screen with you, since I am very visual as a person.
Je crois à la puissance des images
I believe in the power of images
pour transmettre un message.
and their power to transmit
Bien sûr,
a message.
comme il y a traduction en 2 langues,
Of course, because we are translating in 2 languages,
nous n'avons pas pu traduire mes PowerPoint en
the
anglais et
projection
en
is not
russe.
translated in English nor Russian.
Mais si vous vous inscrivez à notre prochaine formation qui démarre en septembre,
For today, the translator is going to translate the slides for you. And
bien
once you
entendu, tous les
enroll, of
PowerPoints
course, in the
sont
courses,
traduits.
of course, all the PowerPoint presentations are translated for you.
C'est bon? Tu vois mon écran en grand? Non. Là, oui.
So let's talk a little bit about what is the therapy of biological decoding. Well, as you probably learned or learned today, or maybe knew from before, that it's a therapy that was created by Christian. And Christian was a student of Dr. Hammer, and he kept from his learnings from Dr. Hammer the 5 biological laws of Dr. Hammer. These 5 fundamental biological laws are what? 1, the relation between the psyche, the brain, and the organs.
Hammer a découvert aussi les lois biphasiques des maladies.
Also, Hammer introduced the law of the phases of illness. There are 2 phases of any illness. So during your training, you're going to learn that there is one phase that is conflictual, when I am in distress during the active conflict. And then there is a phase that is the healing phase. The 3rd fundamental biological law learned from Dr. Hammer was the 4 stages in biology. This means that we rely on each tissue when we are decoding. The 4th law is the role of microbes, bacteria, viruses. And the 5th law of the Dr. Hammer that Christian kept is related to the meaning of symptoms, the sense that is made out of symptoms. Not that it's made out of symptoms, but at the origin of symptoms. So Christian has also been trained in Ericksonian hypnosis. So he developed his work on the subconscious mind. So we use this Ericksonian hypnosis in our technique. This means during your training, you're not going to learn Ericksonian hypnosis, but you're going to learn techniques, a way of talking, how to use your voice to allow the person to center themselves on their own stories. So during the training, you are going to learn how to use Ericksonian hypnosis, but you're not going to learn Ericksonian hypnosis as a training. The subconscious mind is a reservoir of resources, and we're going to use that also in our sessions with clients. Christian FlŠ also is a master practitioner and trainer in neuro-linguistic programming. That was one of the founders is Dr. Bandler. And so this technique, Christian took from it the behavioral schemes. So he kept from NLP the methods used to change the way an individual perceives his environment. And then among some, but not all, of the techniques that Christian FlŠ used is the results of the work of Dr. Mark Frichet, who worked on memorized biological cycles, the cellular memorized cycles, because we
Ce clan familial
are
a
part
ses lois.
of this family clan.
Ce clan familial a ses croyances.
And this family clan has its own
En
beliefs,
décodage
laws,
biologique des maladies,
trauma. So in biological decoding,
il nous arrive très souvent de travailler
we
sur ce que
often
nous appelons le
we often
transgénérationnel.
happen to work on the transgenerational
Notamment
conflicts and
le
events.
projet Sens,
Notably, also, we will work on the project
les
sense,
cycles d'autonomie et d'identité.
the cycles of autonomy and identity. And these are the results of the work of Dr. Mark
Le
Frichet
décodage,
that
c'est
you
une
are going to
thérapie qui est
discover
basée
through your
sur des
trainings in
hypothèses.
biological decoding. So, as you see, that biological decoding is a therapy based on hypotheses. We're not affirming
Je dis
anything.
toujours à mes élèves,
I always tell my students, transform yourself so that you become a good
on
therapist,
a un inspecteur.
so that you
Vous
become an
avez une
inspector.
piste
You have a hypothesis
parce que vous avez découvert des
because you
indices.
discovered some indications, because you
Présentez
noticed
cette piste.
these signals. So present this hypothesis to the patient.
Peut-être qu'il va vous dire, oh,
Maybe he's going to
ce
say,
que vous me dites
no,
là ne me
what
parle pas.
you're telling me here really doesn't resonate with me.
Donc, nous n'insistons pas.
So we won't insist.
Ou peut-être qu'il va vous dire,
Or
mais
maybe he's going to
ça
say,
ah
yeah,
quelque chose en moi.
this really talks to me. It
Donc,
resonates
nous
something
allons
inside of
creuser
me.
cette hypothèse.
So we are
Il y a
going to
deux
dig
grands
in.
courants
And
autour
there are
du
two
décodage
big
biologique.
currents around biological decoding.
Donc,
Two
nous
main
avons vu
currents.
que le décodage
First,
biologique
we saw
a une
that
approche,
biological
je dirais,
decoding
scientifique.
has a scientific approach in it.
Nous observons,
The scientific approach includes observation,
nous allons
hypothesis,
auprès du
verification
patient
and testing,
si ce que nous avons observé et ce que nous avons
verifying
supposé
with the
révèle quelque
client
chose en lui.
whether the hypothesis resonates inside of them, whether it makes sense.
Et si cela réveille quelque chose, eh bien nous validons. Comme
And then
je
we
viens de vous
validate,
l'expliquer.
as I just explained it to you.
Mais à côté du biodécodage,
Also,
eh bien,
I'll,
il y a la médecine nouvelle du docteur Hammer,
different approaches that exist other than biological decoding of Christian Flașche. There's the new medicine of Dr. Hammer, or the total
Ce
biology,
sont des techniques
which are two different
un peu
techniques,
similaires.
and they have some similarities with biological decoding, but not performant on the
Parce
practical
que
side,
la médecine nouvelle et la biologie totale
less performant.
imposent
Why?
les
Because the
codes
new
comme
medicine
des
and the total
certitudes.
biology, they impose the codes as a certainty.
Ce sont des techniques qui sont
These are
beaucoup plus,
techniques that are much more invasive,
beaucoup plus directives.
much more directive. That's a better word to express what I want to say.
Il n'y a pas vraiment de thérapie.
There isn't really any therapy,
Et elle impose le code
as you will find in biological
comme
decoding,
quelque chose que le patient
but there is
doit
anamnesis,
ressentir.
telling the patient what they're supposed to be feeling.
Mais qui
And that's not what we do in biological decoding. Because who are we so that we are certain that what we are saying is really the story behind the symptom for this person? There's only the person who knows for himself, deep down inside of him, that he knows the cause of the origin of his illness.
Et c'est lui aussi, au plus profond de lui, qui a les ressources pour pouvoir guérir.
And also we trust that inside of him, he has all the resources he needs so that he can heal himself. So we rely on the medical diagnosis.
Nous sommes compléments de la médecine et de la psychologie.
Biological decoding as a technique is complementary to medicine and to psychology.
Avec la médecine.
We go hand in hand with medicine.
C'est pour cela que nous avons parmi
For that, among our students, there is a lot of doctors that enroll.
beaucoup de personnel du monde de la santé.
Many professionals in the health
La médecine,
world.
c'est magnifique.
Medicine is
Mais elle va
magnificent,
soigner le symptôme.
but for now, it's what it's doing is that it's healing the symptom.
Nous allons rechercher
And
pourquoi
biological
la
decoding is
raison
going to complement that by finding the origin to answer the question, how come I am ill?
Et bien entendu, une fois
And
que nous
of
avons
course,
cette
once that
cause,
we
bien,
have this cause,
nous,
this
aidons
origin,
le patient à aller mieux.
and once we have the access to this origin, the patient or the client is going
Est-ce
to
que
feel
nous
better.
n'imposons pas nos codes comme des certitudes?
Why don't we impose our codes, our certainties?
Eh bien, parce que
Well,
bien que semblables,
because
nous sommes
even
tous
though
différents.
we are very similar as human beings to one another,
En PNL,
we
nous
are
disons
also each and everyone different
personne
and
a sa
unique.
carte du monde.
In NLP, we say that each person has his own world map.
D'ailleurs, regardez, par exemple, dans une réunion
For
de
example,
famille,
look while you're in a family reunion
un souvenir
or a
commun est
souvenir. No, not or a souvenir. You're in a family reunion where a memory is evoked. Somebody is talking about a souvenir.
différente des faits.
And listen, each one of the people present there is going to tell the story differently,
Parce que
different
chacun
facts,
aura vécu
because
le même
each
événement,
one would have experienced the same event,
mais de manière différente.
but in a different way,
Parce que chacun
because
perçoit
each
la
one of
réalité
us
suivant sa
perceives
carte du monde.
reality according to his own world map.
Je donne très souvent cet
And
exemple à
I
mes élèves.
often give this example, the following example, to my students.
Voilà. Je vais faire des courses en ville.
I'm going to go shopping in the city.
Et puis, je gare ma voiture dans
So
un
I park
parking.
my car in a parking there.
Et puis, quand je reviens,
And then when I come back, I don't see my car anymore.
je peux le vivre de manière différente.
I can have this experience in different ways.
Je peux dire, mais c'est magnifique.
I can
c'était
say,
une
wow,
vieille
it's
voiture.
great. It was an old car. And finally,
On me l'a volé. L'assurance
it's
va me
stolen
rembourser
now.
et
The
je vais
insurance
avoir
is
une
going to
neuve.
reimburse it. And this will allow me to buy a new one.
Donc, pas de problème.
So no problem.
Mais
However,
si j'ai économisé
if
pendant des années,
I had saved money for years and years to buy myself this car,
et vraiment, Ma
And
voiture, c'est
really, my car is
mon moyen
it's really
de
my
déplacement.
the only way to move around
Parce que
for me,
j'habite loin
because
de
I
mon lieu
live
de
far
travail.
away from where I work.
J'habite en campagne,
I
retirée,
feel
et si je
in
n'ai
the
pas ma
village,
voiture,
for example, or and if I don't have my car, then
eh bien,
I
je ne
can't
peux
work.
pas aller
I
à
can't go to my
travailler.
office. I
Donc, si
can't
je ne
work
peux pas
anymore.
aller travailler, je ne vais
So
plus
if I
gagner
can't
d'argent.
work, I can't make money.
Et si je ne gagne pas
And
d'argent,
if I'm
je
not
peux
making
mourir de
money,
faim.
then I can die of hunger.
Donc, cela peut entraîner
So
un
this can
symptôme
cause a
particulier.
symptom, a particular symptom.
Mais si j'arrive et je ne vois pas
But
ma voiture,
if I get there and I don't see my car in the parking where I left it,
je peux le vivre en me disant, mais
I
c'est
can
dégueulasse.
experience it even differently in a
C'est une
third way,
crasse qu'on m'a
feeling
fait.
that it's disgusting. What have been done to me? That's so disgusting.
Et je vais pouvoir déclencher une maladie
And
du
I'm
côlon.
going to be able to trigger a colon disease.
Vous vous rappelez
Do you remember
Christian nous a expliqué
when Christian
que
explains
nous travaillons en fonction
that
du
our
rôle
work
de
is
l'organe.
according to the function of the organ?
Quel est le rôle du côlon?
So what is the role of the colon?
Si ce n'est d'évacuer les crasses.
If
Et
it
voilà,
isn't to
bien,
eliminate
excusez-moi cette expression.
the shit, excuse me for that expression.
Donc, si je viens, on m'a volé ma voiture et je le vis comme une crasse,
If my car was stolen, my experience that this
eh
is
bien, je
shitty,
peux déclencher une maladie du côlon.
disgusting, then I can trigger an illness at the level of my colon.
Donc, chacun perçoit la réalité
So
suivant
each
sa
one
carte du monde.
perceives reality according to his own world map.
Nous sommes une technique très permissive.
So biological decoding is a technique that is very permissive, that is
Nous allons
rather
aider
permissive.
le patient à
It's
se
going to
guérir.
help the patient to heal himself.
Mais ce n'est pas nous, thérapeutes, qui allons
It's not
guérir le
us, it's not the
patient.
therapist who's going to heal the patient.
C'est le patient lui-même
It is the
qui va se
patient
guérir.
himself who's going to heal himself.
Le thérapeute ne guérit personne
The therapist heals no one
par lui-même.
apart from himself as therapist.
Donc, en vous inscrivant à cette formation,
So
nous
when you
allons
enroll in
non
this
seulement
training,
vous expliquer toute
we
la
are of course
théorie,
going to explain to you all the theory in biological decoding,
et elle est précise,
which is very precise,
elle est détaillée.
detailed.
C'est ce qui fait notre force, cette logique
Which
biologique.
gives this the strength of this training. It is
Et
this
nous allons
biological
aussi
logic,
vous enseigner,
biologic.
donc,
And
non
also,
seulement la
apart
théorie,
from the knowledge of the theories, we're going to teach you
mais aussi
more than that.
le savoir-faire,
So you're going to learn the know-how.
c'est-à-dire comment devenir
We're going to
un
teach you
thérapeute
how
en
to
biodécodage.
become a therapist in biological decoding.
C'est quelque chose de très précis.
And it's a very precise technique.
C'est une approche très particulière
It's a particular approach
qui est centrée sur l'écoute.
that is centered on your listening skills.
Donc, nous devons apprendre à nos futurs thérapeutes
So the school is going to teach the future
ce que le
therapists
patient dit.
to listen to what the patient is saying.
le choix des mots qu'il
the
choisit.
choice of words that he chose.
Par exemple, la personne qui a
For example,
à qui on a volé sa voiture,
or the person who got their car stolen
qui trouve que c'est dégueulasse,
and who's finding that it's disgusting.
eh bien, il est
For
orienté
that person,
sur
he is
l'appareil
oriented
digestif,
toward the digestive tract,
plus précisément
more
l'appareil digestif
precisely
inférieur.
the lower digestive tract.
Et dans son discours, il va utiliser des
And
mots
in
qui vont
his
vous donner des pistes.
part of his conversation, he's going to use words and terms and expressions that are going to be an indication for about his conflict, that will give you indications about his conflict.
Il va vous dire c'est dégueulasse,
He's going to use words like disgusting,
c'est une crasse, c'est une merde.
it's shitty, this is all bullshit.
Il va vous dire je ne peux pas
He's going to
éliminer
say,
ça.
I cannot eliminate this.
Donc, on apprend à nos élèves à capter
So we teach our students to capture these specific terms and words that are going to give indications.
On lui apprend aussi à se synchroniser.
We're also going to teach the students how to synchronize to their patients.
Par exemple, si vous
For
avez
example,
une personne qui a un problème
in case there's
d'hyperthyroïdie,
a person who has, in case a person has hyperthyroidism,
alors pour nous, les hypothèses que nous faisons de la thyroïde,
so the hypothesis that we do about thyroidism,
c'est l'organe qui règle le temps.
the thyroid is the organ that regulates time, that manages
Donc, si
time,
je déprogramme ma
the notion of
thyroïde,
time. So if I'm changing the program of my thyroid,
que je souffre d'hyperthyroïdie,
that it's causing a hyperthyroidism,
eh bien, peut-être c'est que
well,
je veux aller
maybe
plus vite.
it's that I want to move faster.
Je veux gagner du temps.
I want to gain time.
Donc, c'est quelqu'un qui va parler très vite.
So that would be someone who's going to talk fast,
C'est quelqu'un qui va être très stressé.
someone who's going to be very stressed.
Mais oui, parce que dans son programme
Yes,
interne,
because in his
il
inner
faut
program,
aller vite.
I have to accelerate.
Et si le thérapeute lui
And
parle
if the
doucement,
therapist
très doucement,
talks slowly to him, like this, talking slowly,
le patient
subconsciously,
va se
this
sentir
client is not going
écouté.
to feel heard.
Il va se sentir sur une autre longueur d'onde.
He's going to feel he's on a different wavelength
Donc, c'est important
than
de
his
se
therapist.
synchroniser.
So it's important to synchronize with the client.
Voyons maintenant le consultant.
Let's look now at the person consulting.
Le consultant,
So
il vient
the person is
parce qu'il
consulting
a une
about
maladie.
an illness.
Il vient parce que il a
He's
un
here
mal-être.
because he's not well.
Il a, par exemple, un
He's not
sentiment
feeling well.
d'infériorité
For example, he's feeling inferior,
ou une sensation d'impuissance.
or a sensation of powerlessness,
Ou il vient parce qu'il a un trouble du comportement.
or he's here because he has a behavioral disorder.
Par exemple, l'obésité.
He can have obesity, for example,
Ou il vient parce qu'il a un problème
or
de relation.
maybe because he has a relational problem.
Il ne sait s'adresser aux gens sans élever la voix, sans montrer sa colère.
He has communication problems with people where he can't communicate unless raising his voice, with an angry attitude. These are examples.
Car il
The
ne
person
sait
who's
si écouter
consulting
son cœur ou si écouter sa
is
raison.
going to be consulting because he doesn't know how to what to listen to, his heart or his reason.
Il vient car il a perdu son identité
He's
profonde.
here because he lost his profound, deep identity.
Il vient car il se sent
He's
perdu,
here because he
anéanti.
feels lost.
Il ne sait pas quelle direction prendre.
Doesn't know in which direction to go.
Il ne sait pas quelle attitude avoir.
He doesn't know which attitude to have, which attitude is best to have.
En fait, il n'arrive pas à
Effectively,
surmonter le problème.
he's not able to surpass, to overcome his problem.
Il est à un moment de sa vie où il a besoin
He's at this moment of
qu'un
his
ami,
life where he needs his hand to be held,
qu'on l'écoute.
to be heard,
Il a besoin
listened
de se
to.
confier.
He needs to confide in someone.
Il a perdu son identité.
He lost his identity,
Peut-être parce qu'il passe
maybe because he's going through difficulties.
il a besoin d'aide thérapeutique.
He needs therapeutic help.
Maintenant, le thérapeute.
And now the therapist.
Donc, comme je vous le disais,
So,
le
as I was
il doit
saying,
savoir écouter.
the therapist should know how to listen,
Et là, nous
should
portons
learn.
vraiment
Is going to be learning how to listen.
d'intérêt à l'écoute.
And here we are going to be very interested with developing our listening skills.
Qualité d'écoute est
This
indispensable.
quality of listening is mandatory, is essential and necessary.
Le thérapeute, il doit
The
accueillir,
therapist should be able to welcome, to
accueillir de manière
be
je dirais,
receptive
presque aveugle, sans
in a
jugement.
blinded way, I would say. This means without any judgment.
Il doit accueillir tout ce que
He
le patient
should
va
be receptive
lui présenter.
of all that the patient, the client is going to present to him.
Et souvent, les histoires de vie des gens
And very
sont
often,
parfois
the stories of the
étranges.
lives of the people coming to consult can be strange, can sound strange.
Accueillir la souffrance de
So it's
l'autre.
important to welcome the suffering of this other person.
Il faut
To accept
aussi
it,
accepter
to accept the therapist is going
ne
to
pas porter de jugement.
accept and not be judgmental.
Et une fois que nous avons
And
mis le doigt sur le
once that
ressenti primaire,
we reach the primary feeling,
que le patient est en contact
that the
avec
patient
le
is,
ressenti dont vous a parlé
when the
Marianne,
patient is in contact of this feeling, as you saw with Marianne earlier,
il va falloir l'amplifier.
then we're going to encourage the client to amplify this
Parce que le
feeling,
patient, il ne veut
because
pas mettre le
this
doigt là où
person
ça
doesn't
fait mal,
want to touch where it hurts.
hein. C'est comme si vous lui disiez,
It's as
allez,
if
mets
you're
ta
telling
main
him, go
au-dessus
ahead,
de la bougie.
put your hand on top of the candle. he's going to pull his hand away.
Et nous, avec beaucoup de douceur,
And us, with lots of
nous
tenderness,
devons le ramener au-dessus
we're
de la
going
bougie.
to take him back
Ne pas rentrer dans
on
cette
top of this
tactique
candle
d'évitement.
instead of staying in the tactics of
Nous devons l'accompagner à
avoidance,
retrouver cette émotion qui a été bloquée.
to find back the emotion that was blocked before.
Nous devons comprendre la
We need to
structure
understand
du
the
patient.
structure of the patient.
Bien sûr, écouter son histoire.
Of course, we're going to listen to the
Écouter
story of
quand
the
il vous dit,
person,
eh bien, je suis
to
tombé dans
listen
l'eau et
to
je
when he
vais
tells you,
faire
I fell in the water and I was going to drown.
Mais nous n'allons pas sauter dans l'eau avec
But
notre
we're not
patient.
going to jump in the water with our clients.
Nous allons rester sur
We're
la
going to
rive.
stay on the shore
Parce que de là-haut, nous sommes beaucoup plus efficaces
because from the shore, we are more
que si
efficient,
nous rentrons dans le
more
profond
efficient
de
than
son émotion.
going deep, diving into his emotion.
De la berge, nous pouvons lui envoyer une corde.
And from the shore, we
Nous
can send
pouvons
him
appeler des
maybe
secours.
a rope or
C'est ce
maybe
que,
call for
c'est
help.
une métaphore pour vous expliquer que nous devons
It's a
comprendre la
metaphor
structure du
to
patient.
explain to you that we need to understand the structure of the patient
Pas rentrer dans
and not
l'histoire
get
précise,
into the precise content of the story of the patient, but
et
his
ça requiert
structure.
une certaine écoute.
And this requires a particular way of listening.
Nous devons l'aider à penser de vieilles blessures.
So during this therapy,
Ces
we're
blessures,
going to
vous savez, qui ont
heal
lieu
the old
dans
wounds,
l'enfance.
some wounds that were open since are still open since
Ces
our
blessures
childhood.
qui ont créé les programmants, comme vous l'a expliqué Linda.
These wounds that created the programming conflicts, as was explained to you by Linda.
Secourir son enfant interne.
And you're going to help the inner child,
L'enfant qui s'est senti abandonné
the
par
inner
papa ou
child
maman.
that felt abandoned by daddy or mommy.
Un enfant, quand il se sent abandonné, peut avoir
When a child
différentes
feels
manières de
abandoned,
réagir à
you
cela.
can have different ways to react to that, different reactions to that.
Déjà, un enfant va toujours penser que c'est sa faute.
For example, a child can think most
Si
of the
papa
time
et
that it's
maman
his
se séparent, c'est ma
fault.
faute.
If my mom and dad,
Donc,
if my mom and
si
dad
je
are
me sens
separating,
abandonnée,
it's my fault. So if I
peut-être
feel
que je n'ai
abandoned,
pas été assez sage.
maybe it's because I wasn't behaving, or I wasn't behaving
Pour pallier
enough.
à cela, eh bien, je dois modifier mon comportement.
So in order to solve that, I need to change my behavior.
Je dois me transformer dans un enfant image.
I have to transform, to change myself into an ideal child, into a perfect child.
Ne pas me faire remarquer pour ne pas gêner.
I shouldn't, for example, get noticed so that I do not bother the others. Should go unnoticed.
Donc, je dois modifier
So I'm
mon
going to
identité
modify
profonde.
my deep inner identity. I'm going to modify
alors,
that.
J'ai été abandonnée.
Or maybe,
bien, c'est parce qu'on ne m'a pas
in
vu.
another example, I was abandoned
Donc,
because I wasn't
je
seen.
dois attirer l'attention.
So I need to attract attention as a
Je
solution
vais
not to
devenir
be abandoned again.
insupportable.
I'm going to become unbearable. I'm going to change my behavior and become unbearable, make it unbearable for others.
Papa et maman me
Because I
grondent.
prefer that mom and dad
Qu'être abandonné, que ce vide, cette absence.
that they punish me. The word isn't coming. That they punish me instead of just losing
Voilà, il va falloir
their eyesight.
secourir cet enfant
I
interne.
want them to see me, and this is how I help my inner child heal.
Cette partie de soi qui est restée avec cette
This
blessure
part of me that
profonde.
stayed with this deep wound of abandonment. That's how.
Qui, dès que
That's the
quelqu'un
solution I find
s'éloigne de moi,
for it. So later on, as soon as someone
des
gets
amis qui ne me téléphonent
away
plus,
from me, maybe friends who
un
stop
mari
calling
qui
me
devient plus distant,
for a while, or a husband who's becoming a little distant.
c'est-à-dire tous les déclenchants
This means all the triggering, all the possible triggering events in my life
qui vont venir réveiller
that are going
cette
to come and
blessure
awaken this
interne.
illness, this inner wound.
Donc, nous allons aider le patient
So we're
à
going
soigner,
to help
à
the
guérir
patient
son enfant
to
interne.
heal his inner child.
Comment est-ce que nous allons faire?
So how to do that?
Eh bien, d'abord, il y a la prise de conscience.
Well, first we need to bring that to our awareness.
Il prend conscience
It means that the patient becomes aware
de la cohérence de son
of the
symptôme
coherence between his symptom
avec l'histoire qu'il était en train de vivre
and the
juste
story,
avant que nous
the
démarrions
event that he was
la
experiencing
maladie.
right before the illness started.
Donc, nous allons attirer son attention sur cette prise de conscience.
So we're going to attract his attention to
Je
this,
comprends maintenant
to get to this awareness,
j'ai développé une
to
gastrite
discover this
stable
coherence. Oh, now I get it, why I developed a
quand
stomach ulcer
j'ai été licenciée de mon
or a
travail.
gastritis when I was laid off.
Donc, qu'est-ce que nous entendons, nous, comme thérapeutes?
So what do we hear as therapists?
Gastrite, eh bien, on est au niveau de l'appareil
When it's
digestif.
gastritis, it's the digestive tract.
Quel est le rôle de l'estomac?
Gastritis is
Eh bien, l'estomac,
infection
il
in
reçoit des
the
bulles
stomach. So what's the role of the
du
stomach?
système digestif.
So the stomach receives at the very beginning of the digestive tract,
Il reçoit la nourriture.
it receives food.
Il reçoit ce que nous appelons le morceau.
It receives what we're going to call the morsel.
Si j'avale un os,
This means if I eat a bone,
ben pour digérer cet os, il va falloir que mon pancréas
in
sécrète
order
assez de
to
gastrite
digest this
fort.
bone, my stomach should produce more acids
Pour dissoudre cet
in
os.
order to dissolve this bone.
Mais si ce morceau, eh bien, c'est mon licenciement.
And when this morsel is not a bone,
Eh bien,
but
pour
it's the event of my
l'inconscient
layoff, for my
collectif, ce
my
morceau
subconscious,
est ce qui vient de
what is coming from the outside is difficult for me to digest. This decision of layoff is difficult for me to digest.
Je mets quand même en route tout le processus des sucs gastriques.
So I get this symptom.
Et là, le patient va vous dire, ah, ça passe pas.
And the client, for example, here
Il va
can
vous dire,
use
cette
words
situation,
such as I
je
can't digest
l'assimile
it.
pas. Il va vous dire, cet
I
événement, j'ai
can't
du mal à le
digest it.
digérer.
It's difficult to digest.
Vous voyez, là, on reconnaît les prédicats digestifs.
So here we call them the predicates. And these are examples of
Donc,
digestive
quand il va
predicates.
prendre conscience, ah mais oui, ma gastrite, elle a démarré au moment où j'ai
So
été
when he's
licencié.
going to become aware of the coherence between
C'est
the
logique,
gastritis, his layoff,
c'est biologique.
and where it's coming from,
Donc,
it becomes
prise de conscience.
logical, biological.
Puis après, eh bien, nous allons
So that's the
accompagner le
first
patient, l'aider à ce
step,
qu'il libère cette
on the
émotion.
first depth in therapy. The second would be to liberate the emotion.
Il n'y a rien de plus corrosif qu'une émotion qui est renfermée à l'intérieur de soi.
There's nothing as hurtful than an emotion that is blocked inside of us.
Nous allons aider le patient à libérer cette émotion.
We're going to help the patient to liberate this emotion.
Puis ensuite, eh bien, nous allons l'aider à trouver les ressources dont il a besoin.
And then we're going to help him to find the resources that he needs.
Et ça, c'est pas nous qui savons exactement ce qu'il a besoin.
And it's not us, it's not the job of the therapist to know what he needs.
Ne donne jamais de conseils.
And biological decoding therapist never
C'est
gives
le patient
resources. It is the patient
ce dont
who
il a besoin.
knows what he needs.
Puis ensuite, nous pouvons
And then
aller encore plus profondément.
we'll be able
dans
to
la
go
thérapie
even more profoundly, more deeper in therapy,
et l'aider à transformer le
and to help
sens
him to
qu'il a donné
transform
à l'événement.
the meaning, the sense that he gave to the event.
Je reprends l'exemple que je vous ai donné tout à l'heure de cette
I'll go
enfant qui
back
se
to the
sent
example
abandonné.
of that child who felt abandoned.
Eh bien, voilà, maman s'est séparée de moi
So mom was separated from me,
et elle m'a confiée chez ma grand-mère
and she left me at my grandmother's house,
qui n'était pas très affectueuse.
who wasn't very affectionate.
Mais quand on va revisiter ce programme,
And when we're going to revisit this programming event,
qu'est-ce qui s'est passé dans cette histoire?
what happened in this story?
Eh bien, maman m'a confiée à la grand-mère
My mother left me with my grandmother
parce qu'il y avait un petit frère qui est arrivé.
because she was giving birth to my brother,
Ou parce qu'elle a été malade et a dû être hospitalisée.
or because she was sick and she had to be in the hospital
Vous
for a
voyez,
while.
on va permettre au patient de donner un autre sens.
So we're going to allow the patient to give another meaning to the event that he experienced.
Nous pouvons même aller changer l'histoire,
We can even go and change the story
puisque,
even
comme je vous l'ai
deeper.
dit tout à l'heure,
Because as
le
I
mental, il
told
fait
you
pas la
a bit
différence
earlier,
entre hier
Our brain does not differentiate between yesterday and tomorrow.
Entre l'autre et moi,
Between
on ne fait pas la différence.
me and the other. It doesn't make a difference
Puisque c'est moi qui ai créé l'autre.
because I created the other.
Donc, on va pouvoir aller changer.
So we're going to be able to go change the story,
Lui donner un autre sens.
to give it another meaning.
Pour cela, nous avons, et c'est ce
And
qui
for
nous
that,
différencie des autres techniques,
and what differentiates biological decoding of Christian Flașche from any other technique is the
ce sont les mises en situation,
protocols, which is
ce que nous
the
appelons
practice.
les protocoles. Comme protocole, déjà, je crois que c'est Marianne qui vous a parlé de la biocible.
So Marianne talked a little bit about the biotarget,
Ça, vous apprendrez grâce à ce protocole
which is something you're going to
à
learn
amener
through this
le
protocol.
patient sur son ressenti.
You're going to use the biotarget, this protocol, to take the person back to his feeling, his
Nous avons
primary feeling.
aussi des protocoles comme
We
la
also
ligne de
have
vie,
protocols like the timeline,
où on fait tracer une ligne
where we're
au
going
sol,
to
dans votre
draw a
cabinet,
timeline on the ground in your cabinet,
où on va pouvoir se déplacer
where we're
depuis
going to be
la
able to move
naissance
around
jusqu'au jour d'aujourd'hui,
between birth, the day of today,
ou aller travailler sur le moment où les symptômes se
we're
sont
going to be able to use the
déclarés.
timeline to work on the moment that the symptoms were triggered.
Sur cette ligne de vie, on va pouvoir aller même
On this
travailler
timeline, we're
notre
also going to be able to work in the life that was ours in the womb,
dans le transgénérationnel.
or even in the transgenerational.
Nous utilisons
So
aussi
even before
beaucoup
birth
de dessins.
or before conception. In our
Parce que dans le
techniques, we're
dessin,
going
on ne met
to
pas le mental.
use drawings, use papers. And we use drawings
le
because
dessin,
when we draw,
bien,
we are no
il y a
longer in our heads,
l'inconscient qui se
but we
manifeste.
allow the subconscious mind to be manifested, to manifest itself.
Parmi les protocoles aussi, on met beaucoup de petits papiers
Among the
sur le
protocols,
sol, comme vous
it's
voyez
possible that we
sur
use papers.
cette photo.
As you see on this photo, we're putting them here on the floor.
Petit papier où il va y avoir présent, passé, futur.
In these papers, you might write the present, past, future, for example.
Il y a le protocole aussi de la boulette.
You're going to learn among the different protocols,
Nous
the
avons
protocol of the
une
paper
valise
ball.
pleine de protocoles.
There's a big bag full of such tools, such protocols for you,
que nous
awaiting
offrons,
you,
à nos
that are
stagiaires,
going to be offered to you during your training.
que nous aidons le stagiaire à travers ces protocoles
That we
de travailler
use
sur son
to
histoire.
help the student to
Parce qu'un
experiment with
bon
also
thérapeute
during the
doit
training.
travailler sur lui.
Because a good therapist should work also on his own stories, on his own shocks.
Imaginez un thérapeute
Imagine a
qui a peur
therapist
que
who
son quand
is
son patient
afraid
impacte des émotions
when
fortes.
his client has emotions, especially if they're intense.
Eh bien, il va arrêter. Il ne
Well,
va
he's
pas
going
aider
to
son
stop.
patient à aller jusqu'au bout.
He's not going to allow his patient to go all the way, all the way.
Ou imaginez un thérapeute qui
Or
a
imagine
lui
a
aussi
therapist
le conflit d'abandon.
who also haven't resolved his abandonment conflict,
Comment
and he
va-t-il
receives a
pouvoir
client with that conflict.
accompagner
How is he
le
going to be
patient
able to accompany? In what way is he
s'il n'a pas
going to be able to
traité
accompany
son
the client
abandon?
if he hadn't treated his abandonment conflict before that?
Et vous savez, nous
And you
attirons
know,
les
we
patients
attract
qui
the
sont très
patients
souvent en
who are often in relation with what we are experiencing ourselves. Or what we've resolved. So, during the training, there are going to be demonstrations of these protocols. Your trainer is going to demonstrate them first. With one of the volunteering students. The demonstration will take place with one of the volunteering students. And the trainer is going to explain step by step how the protocol was done. And then the big group is going to be divided into groups of 2. And every 2 students are going to practice this protocol together. And the trainer is going to pass between the students and give feedback and suggest corrections, for example, of attitudes, helping the therapist to be more of what we expect of them. I told you about the power of drawings a little bit. Look, I put in front of you 2 drawings that one of my patients did. On the left, she's working on her heart. So on the left is the drawing of her heart that is opening because she's consulting after a separation in her couple's relationship. And she does this drawing at first. And at the end of the session, she realizes a new drawing, and it's the one that you're seeing on your right. So just through these 2 drawings, we can see the evolution that can happen only through a single session. So the therapist is going to show empathy. And empathy, what is it about? It's love. It's the most powerful of any treatments. So, I just talked to you about the patient, the therapist, the technique of biological decoding, the protocols. And now, let's end our conference on what are you going to do during these 3 years? What are the details of this training through which you get to be certified as a psychobiotherapist? So the first year is what we call the bio basics. The bio basics are 6 modules of 3 days each. And there is around a month and a half between a module and the next one. Because the students need time to assimilate what is the information that is being received. The information is dense. It's rich in theories and practice. The second year, during the second year, we're going to have courses that we call conflictology. This means that we're going to work on each system. And at the same time, what you're going to have is, what you're going to see is also a course called Bio-NLP. In the third year, you're going to enroll in themed workshops, such as workshop around beliefs, another on the transgenerational therapy, overweight, for example, blocking conflicts, for example. So there, we're going to teach you how to listen and understand your emotions and their origin. You're going to listen to the emotions that are at the origin of your symptom. You're going to identify and unveil your real feelings, as you saw with Marianne. For the first year, when you finish the first year, that is made up of 6 modules. The first module is a course, it's a 2-day course, and we call it the fundamentals. And here we're going to allow you to discover and experiment with the link between the brain, the body, and the psyche. We're going to explain to you and allow you to understand how we get into illness. This means it's the famous logic of the symptom that we talked about, the biological sense of diseases. All this with the purpose of to fine-tune your listening skills to the illnesses, to the emotions that can become symptoms in the body. How to distinguish between thoughts, sensations, emotions. You will learn also that. In the second module, you're going to learn about the 2 logics, the rational and the emotional logic. We're going to talk about the Bio-Schock, the bio-target. I'm going to talk to you about your primary and secondary feelings, as you saw a bit with Marianne. Then you're going to learn more about the 2 big families of conflicts. We're going to explain to you what are the illusions of biology in biology. We're going to talk about this tripolarity between the psyche, the brain, and the body that cannot be separated. We're going to talk about allergies, and we're going to explore the first stage in biology. What is that about? Well, the first stage in therapy corresponds to a region in the brain And this region in the brain
Et
is
ce
the
premier étage est en
brainstem.
relation avec des ressentis très spécifiques.
It is in relation to very specific feelings.
Et ces ressentis sont en relation avec des organes très précis.
And this brainstem is in relation
Premier
to
étage, il
specific
correspond à l'endoderme.
organs.
Quand je vous
The second
parlais de la
stage,
précision du diagnostic médical.
before we get to the second stage, I want to remind you that as I talked to you before about the precision of the medical diagnosis, it's very important to have a diagnosis so that we know which tissue is affected in this specific illness. During the third module, we're going to learn about the autonomous system, the inflammation, the phases of illness, deficiencies,
du syndrome d'épuisement ou de fatigue chronique.
we're going to also see germs, viruses, burnout syndrome, exhaustion syndrome, the exhaustion syndrome, chronicities, in the second stage in biology. As you can imagine, there are lots of debates and sharings throughout all these chapters. The second stage in biology is the cerebellum, corresponding to the layer of the mesoderm. And we're going to visit all the organs that are in relation with the cerebellum and their corresponding emotions. During the fourth module, we're going to learn more about the brain, its anatomy and physiology, headaches, cerebral tumors. We're not going to have, the courses are not medical information, but we're going to talk about organs and biology from a biological decoding perspective. We will, in this fourth module, we're going to distinguish between different types of migraines, the migraine that comes during repair or recovery phase, and the migraine that comes in the stress phase. We're going to learn also in this module about cancer. All this, all along throughout all modules with the protocols that are adapted to each stage in biology. So in each module, there will be discoveries and practice of protocols. In this fourth module, we're going to also teach you about the inkwell and the eraser. And this is a creation of Christian regarding the deep structure of the patient. And then we're going to visit the third stage in biology, which is just the brain marrow, the new mesoderm, we call this layer. The fifth module, in the fifth module, we're going to see the portal of entry into biology. And this is also a creation of Christian that is fantastic, and that he shared it with the students. We're going to introduce the locking conflicts, and we are going to have an initiation to predicates. Then we're going to visit the fourth stage in biology that corresponds to the cortex. And we're going to talk about the hormonal switch. And the sixth module is going to be all about the integration of the 5 modules, and it will include the certification process where you will be validated and certified by the end of this first year. So there will be the test and a test where when you pass it, you will get your first certification of the first year in biological decoding. The second year of your training, you're going to attend the courses on conflictology. As I told you a bit earlier, that we're going to go deeper in each system. We're going to deepen our knowledge of the theoretical and also practical learning concerning the organic function, each organic function in the body. Remember, it's all from a biodecoding perspective, not a medical perspective. You don't need to have studied medicine or the like in order to be able to do this training. You don't need that. During the conflictology trainings, we're going to work on the biological feelings related to each one of these organs and tissues. And this will allow you to fine-tune your biological listening skills and your therapeutic practical skills by apparatus.
Et bien sûr, les protocoles spécifiques à chaque appareil.
And of course, you're going to learn protocols specific to each one of these tracts. And these are powerful protocols that we're going to share with you, that you're going to use. So at the end of this second year, you're going to need to pass your test to be certified in your second year. The third year will include the themed workshops. One of them is about the beliefs, how to discover limiting beliefs, how to change them. The second one is transgenerational therapy. The locking conflicts, obesity and overweight, how to be a therapist.
Premier diplôme, conseiller en décodage biologique des maladies.
So each year you will get a different diploma. The third year allows you to become a psychobiotherapist.
Spasiba, merci, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.